At Morixa Tales, we believe in the power of storytelling. Our scripts weave together deep emotions and dramatic turns to deliver justice where it is most needed. Experience captivating mysteries where the truth eventually shines through, leaving a lasting impact on your heart and mind.
During a family dinner at my sister's luxurious penthouse, she placed a cup of tea before me and smiled like the perfect hostess. "Drink up, I made it myself." Her voice was soft as velvet. Her eyes were sharp as steel. I raised my cup, smiled in return, gazed straight into her eyes without blinking. Then I gently touched the ring on my finger. The door behind us burst open. Her face was deathly pale. Finally, it was time for her to break down. "I'm truly grateful you're here. Before we begin, drop a comment and let me know where are you watching from your city, your country. I'd love to connect with viewers around the world. And just so you know, this story includes fictionalized elements added for entertainment and educational purposes. Names and settings may be altered, but the lesson I'm conveying, that part could genuinely save your life. My name is Remy Ashford, and 3 weeks ago, my job was to identify poisons that killed people. I never imagined I would have to do it to save my own life, but I am getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to where it all started, October 7th, 2025, a Tuesday, that began like any other and ended with the floor falling out from under me. That morning, I stood in a federal courtroom in downtown Austin, Texas, wearing my standard issue Navy suit and the kind of sensible heels that said, "Credible expert witness," without saying, "trying too hard." I had testified in dozens of trials over my 12 years with the FBI, and this one was no different, a 34-year-old construction worker dead from fentanyl, his girlfriend claiming she had no idea the pills were laced. The defense attorney tried to rattle me with questions about detection thresholds and metabolite degradation, but I had run those tests myself. I knew the numbers cold. "Agent Ashford," the prosecutor asked, adjusting his wire-rimmed glasses, "in your professional opinion, could the defendant have known these pills contained fentanyl?" I looked at the jury, 8 faces tired and skeptical, and spoke clearly. "The pills were bright blue and stamped with a logo that does not match any FDA-approved medication. They were purchased from an unlicensed dealer. Yes, she could have known. She should have known." The girlfriend started crying. I did not look at her. I had learned a long time ago that sympathy was not part of my job. My job was the science, the truth, the cold, unyielding facts of what killed people and how. By 11:30, I was back at the FBI field office, a squat concrete building wedged between a parking garage and a Whole Foods on 6th Street. My desk was buried under case files, half-empty coffee cups, and a framed photo of me at my FBI Academy graduation, younger, hopeful, convinced I was going to change the world. I dropped my briefcase on the floor and was about to dig into the stack of toxicology reports, waiting for my review, when I noticed someone sitting in the chair beside my desk, Declan Royce. Declan was a special agent in the Organized Crime Drug Enforcement Task Force, one of those guys who looked like he had been carved out of granite and left in the Texas sun to harden. 43 years old widower, former Army MP with a daughter. He talked about more than he talked about anything else. We had worked together on a handful of cases over the years. He brought me the bodies I told him what killed them. Professional, respectful. The kind of partnership that did not require small talk. But Declan did not usually show up at my desk unannounced. "Got a minute?" he asked. I pulled out my chair and sat down, already reaching for the coffee I had abandoned that morning. It was lukewarm and tasted like regret, but I drank it anyway. "What's up?" He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, and lowered his voice, even though the office was nearly empty. "I need your eyes on something. Off the record." That got my attention. Off the record in the FB, I usually meant legally murky or, "We do not have enough to make this official yet." I raised an eyebrow. "How off the record?" "Completely." He pulled a USB drive from his jacket pocket and set it on my desk. "I got an anonymous tip yesterday. Someone used Secure Drop, the encrypted platform whistleblowers use. They sent me screenshots of text messages, bank transfers, a list of pharmacies in Texas. The whole thing screams drug trafficking, but there is not enough here to get a warrant. How bad are we talking? Big. Maybe $12 million a year. Oxycodone, Xanax, Adderall, Ambien prescription pills, all controlled substances, all being distributed through what looks like a shell company. The messages mention 200 units Oxy and $15,000 payments. The bank transfers are coded, but they are sloppy. Whoever is running this thinks they are smarter than they are. I picked up the USB drive and turned it over in my hand. So what's the problem? No names, no addresses, just an initial W and 12 pharmacies scattered across Texas, all with suspicious prescription patterns. I need someone who can cross-reference this with public health data. Find a pattern. Give me something concrete. You have access to the state's prescription drug monitoring program, right? I nodded slowly. The Texas PDMP tracked every controlled substance prescription written in the state, who prescribed it, who filled it where and when. It was public health data, which meant the FBI could access it without a warrant as long as we were investigating a potential public safety threat. Yeah, I can pull that. What exactly am I looking for? Anomalies. Doctors writing way too many scripts. Pharmacies filling way too many pills. Anything that ties back to this list. He slid a piece of paper across my desk, 12 pharmacy names addresses in Houston, Dallas, Austin, San Antonio. I scanned the list. One of them was in Austin, less than 3 miles from where we were sitting. And if I find something, then we go official. But until then, this stays between us. I should have asked more questions. I should have pushed back, told him I was already buried under a mountain of case files and did not have time to chase ghosts. But the truth was, I was curious. $12 million, 200 victims, maybe more. People dying because someone decided their profit mattered more than human lives. Okay, I said. Give me a couple of days. Declan stood up, relief washing over his face. Thanks, Remy. I owe you one. You owe me 3... I corrected, but I was already plugging the USB drive into my computer. The rest of the afternoon disappeared into spreadsheets and database queries. I pulled 3 years of prescription data from the PDMP, cross-referenced it with overdose reports from the Texas Department of State Health Services, and ran it against the 12 pharmacies on Declan's list. The patterns jumped out almost immediately. Doctors who had written 2,400 prescriptions for oxycodone in 36 months, all routed through the same handful of pharmacies. It was textbook drug trafficking, the kind of operation that should have been shut down years ago. But that was not the part that made my blood run cold. Every single prescription, every single pharmacy, every single dollar, all of it traced back to one limited liability company registered with the Texas Secretary of State. Ashford Wellness Holdings, LLC. I stared at the screen, my heart pounding in my chest. Ashford was not a common name. I knew exactly one other person in the world with that name. My hands moved on autopilot, typing the company name into LinkedIn. The search results loaded in less than a second. Owner and founder Wild Ashford. There she was, my sister. 31 years old, honey blonde hair, perfect teeth, smiling at the camera like she did not have a care in the world. Her profile said she was a wellness coach with 420,000 Instagram followers and a passion for holistic health solutions. I clicked on her Instagram. The feed was full of green smoothies, yoga poses, motivational quotes in looping script. The most recent post was from 2 days ago, a selfie in front of a Tesla caption reading, "Grateful for this journey." I sat there for a long time staring at my sister's face on the screen and felt the floor fall away beneath me. I didn't sleep that night. By dawn, I'd made a decision before I reported anything to the FBI. I needed to know the truth. If my sister was innocent, I'd find proof. If she wasn't, I'd find that too. Wednesday morning, October 8th. I called my supervisor and told her I needed 2 personal days. Family emergency, I said, which wasn't exactly a lie. She didn't ask questions. 12 years of spotless service bought you that kind of trust. I spent the first hour sitting at my kitchen table with a cup of coffee that went cold before I touched it, staring at my laptop screen. Wild's Instagram profile was still open from the night before. 420,000 followers, a grid of perfectly curated photos that screamed success without ever saying the word. Green smoothies in mason jars, yoga poses on a paddleboard at Lady Bird Lake, motivational quotes in looping cursive overlaid on sunsets. But it was the lifestyle shots that caught my attention. a selfie in front of a white Tesla Model Y with the caption, "New ride who just posted 6 months ago." Another photo from 2 weeks back, Wild holding a Gucci handbag at some boutique downtown tagged at the domain. A third showed her at a rooftop bar, champagne in hand, wearing a dress I recognized from a Nordstrom ad I'd seen in a magazine. Wellness coaches didn't make that kind of money. Not legitimately. I started digging. The Texas Secretary of State website was public record searchable by anyone with an internet connection. I typed in Ashford Wellness Holdings and pulled up the business registration. Filed March 2021, owner and registered agent Wild Ashford. Business address a UPS store mailbox in North Austin. No employees listed, no physical storefront. A shell company. Classic. I moved on to her social media. Wild posted 3 to 4 times a week, always polished, always aspirational. But buried in the comments and captions were hints of something else. People tagging her with usernames like Health First 2023 and Wellness Warrior 88, thanking her for helping them find balance. Some mentioned consultations. Others talked about personalized wellness plans. And then there were the payment receipts. Wild had a habit of posting screenshots of Venmo and Zelle transactions on her Instagram stories, a weird flex, but influencers did stranger things for engagement. Most of the posts were deleted within 24 hours, but I found a few still cached on third-party sites that archived Instagram content. $450 from Health First 2023, with a note that said, "Thanks for the recommendation." $620 from Wellness Warrior 88 with a fire emoji. Another for $375, then $500, then $900. I pulled out a calculator. If Wild was posting about $28,000 in a single month, and those were just the transactions she felt comfortable sharing publicly, how much was she actually making? I did the math. Conservative estimate, $12 million a year. $12 million moving through fake consultations and wellness plans distributed by 6 doctors and 12 pharmacies across Texas. 200 dealers, maybe more. Oxycodone, Xanax, Adderall, Ambien. All of it controlled substances. All of it illegal without a prescription. All of it traceable back to my sister. I sat back in my chair and tried to breathe. This wasn't some small-time operation. This was organized crime. Thursday, I kept digging. I pulled up Wild's Instagram location tags and mapped them out. She checked in frequently at Barton Creek Country Club, the kind of place where initiation fees ran $65,000 and memberships were invitation only. Our parents had belonged for years. Sterling, my father, had retired from Goldman Sachs a decade ago and spent his days golfing and networking with other wealthy retirees. Estelle, my mother, threw charity galas and redecorated their 1,200-square-foot house in Westlake Hills every other year. Wild posted photos from their house at least once a month. Sunday brunches, holiday dinners, pool parties with people I didn't recognize, but who all looked like they'd stepped out of a country club brochure. I wondered if they knew, if they had any idea what their golden child was really doing. Golden child. That was what they'd always called her, wasn't it? Wild was the fun one, the charming one, the one who could do no wrong. I was the serious one, the overachiever, the one who worked herself half to death trying to prove she was worthy of the same love they gave Wild without her even asking. I pushed the thought away. This wasn't about childhood resentments. This was about the law. But God, it hurt. Friday morning, I almost gave up. Almost called Declan, told him what I'd found, let the bureau take over. But something stopped me. Maybe it was the part of me that still wanted to believe Wild had an explanation. Maybe it was the part that knew, once I made this official, there was no going back. So I kept looking, and that was when I found it. A cached Instagram story from 3 months ago posted at 10:42 in the morning and deleted by noon. The image showed Wild standing at a pharmacy counter, smiling at the camera. The caption read, "Picking up essentials," followed by a pill emoji and a sparkle emoji. The location tag said Greenway Pharmacy, Houston. I cross-referenced it with Declan's list. Greenway Pharmacy was number 4, one of the 12. I stared at the screen, my hands shaking. She hadn't just been visiting a pharmacy. She'd been bragging about it, and then she'd deleted the evidence. This wasn't a mistake. This was a confession hidden in plain sight. This was my sister, the wellness coach, with 420,000 followers and a Tesla and a Gucci handbag, running a $12 million drug empire and posting about it on Instagram like it was just another day in her perfect life. I closed my laptop and sat there in the silence of my apartment, the morning light streaming through the window, traffic humming on South Congress below. I'd found my proof, and now I had to decide what to do with it. The answer I knew was obvious. I had to confront her. I had to give her one chance to explain, to turn herself in, to do the right thing before I went to the FBI and destroyed her life. Because that was what this would do. I knew that. Once I reported this, Wild would go to prison. Our parents would never forgive me. I'd lose the only family I had left. But 200 people were getting pills they shouldn't have. God knew how many of them had overdosed, how many had died. I picked up my phone and opened a text to Wild. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. "We need to talk." I hit send before I could change my mind. I texted Wild that morning, "Coffee, need to talk." She replied within seconds, "Medici at 10. Miss you, sis." I stared at that heart emoji for a long time before I typed back, "See you there." The thing about that heart was that it felt like a lie. Or maybe I just wanted it to be a lie because the alternative, that Wild actually loved me and was still running a $12 million drug operation, was too complicated to process. I got to Cafe Medici 20 minutes early. The place was exactly what I needed: crowded, visible public. Clarksville was one of those Austin neighborhoods where everyone seemed to know everyone else, where people brought their dogs and their MacBooks and sat outside for hours pretending to work while actually just people watching. The outdoor patio was packed with the usual Saturday morning crowd: yoga moms in expensive leggings, tech bros in Patagonia, vests, a couple of UT students hunched over textbooks with headphones on. I chose a table near the edge of the patio facing the street. 2 exits, clear sightlines. Instinct, I guess. 12 years with the FB, I taught you to always know where the doors were. I ordered a black coffee I didn't want and sat there watching the minutes tick by on my phone. 10 o'clock came and went. 10:05. 10:10. At 10:15, Wild's white Tesla pulled up to the curb. She stepped out like she was stepping onto a runway. Honey blonde hair pulled into a high ponytail, oversized sunglasses, a Lululemon jacket, and matching leggings that probably cost more than my monthly rent. She was holding a Starbucks cup grande, I noticed, with her name written in Sharpie on the side, and she didn't so much as glance at the cafe menu board as she walked toward me. A power move, showing up late with coffee from somewhere else, subtle but effective. Remy. She pulled me into a hug before I could stand up, the kind of embrace that felt rehearsed. Too tight, too long, too performative. When she pulled back, she was smiling, but her eyes were hidden behind those sunglasses. God, it's been forever. You look tired. Are you sleeping okay? I'm fine. I gestured to the chair across from me. Sit. She slid into the seat with the kind of easy grace that had always come naturally to her, set her Starbucks cup on the table, and folded her hands like we were about to have a casual catch-up session. "So what's up? Your text sounded serious." I took a breath. I'd rehearsed this conversation a dozen times in my head, but now that she was sitting in front of me, all those carefully chosen words felt inadequate. "I wanted to talk to you about your business." Her smile didn't falter. "Ashford Wellness. What about it? What exactly do you sell?" "Wild supplements, vitamins. I do health consultations, help people find balance in their lives. You know, holistic wellness." She said it so smoothly, so effortlessly, that for a second I almost believed her. "Why, because I've been looking into it, and your business is connected to 12 pharmacies across Texas. That's not a normal setup for a supplement company." Her smile tightened. Just a fraction, just enough that I noticed. "Who told you that?" "Does it matter?" "Yeah, Remy, it kind of does." She leaned forward, lowering her voice. "Are you investigating me?" "I'm asking you a question." She sat back, crossing her arms. The sunglasses came off, and for the first time I saw her eyes. Cold, calculating. Nothing like the warm, bubbly persona she projected on Instagram. "We partner with pharmacies for referrals. It's totally legal. Pharmacists recommend our wellness plans to customers who are looking for holistic alternatives. It's a mutually beneficial relationship. While I work for the FBI, I know what a drug trafficking operation looks like. The words hung in the air between us. Around us, the cafe buzzed with conversation, the hiss of the espresso machine, the clink of mugs on saucers. But at our table, there was only silence. Wild's jaw tightened. "You think I'm what dealing drugs? Are you serious right now? I think you're running a business that moves $12 million a year through fake wellness consultations and prescription pills. I think you've got 6 doctors and 12 pharmacies on your payroll. I think you're smart enough to know exactly what you're doing." She laughed. It was a harsh, brittle sound. "Wow, okay. So my own sister thinks I'm a criminal. Am I wrong?" She didn't answer. She just stared at me, and in that silence, I saw the truth. The mask was slipping. The carefully constructed facade of the wellness coach, the influencer, the golden child, it was cracking. Wild listened to me. I leaned forward, keeping my voice low. "If something illegal is happening, I need to report it. But if you tell me the truth right now, if you turn yourself in, cooperate with the FBI, you could get a reduced sentence. Maybe even avoid prison time if you help us take down the people above you. But you have to do it now, before this gets worse." For a moment, I thought she might actually do it. I thought I saw something flicker in her eyes, fear maybe, or regret, but then it was gone. She leaned in close, so close I could smell her perfume. Expensive, floral, the same scent she'd worn since high school. "You have no idea what you're talking about," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Drop this, Remy. For your own good." She stood up, pulled a $20 bill from her wallet, and tossed it on the table. She hadn't ordered anything, hadn't touched the coffee she'd brought. The 20 was just for show, a way of saying she didn't owe me anything. "Take care of yourself, sis," she said, slipping her sunglasses back on, and then she walked away. I watched her go, watched her climb into her Tesla, watched her pull away from the curb without so much as a glance in my rearview mirror. The exhaust fumes hung in the October air, and I just sat there, hands wrapped around a cold cup of coffee, feeling like I'd just been punched in the gut. My phone buzzed, a text from Declan. "We got a hit on the anonymous tip. Can you come in Monday? This is bigger than we thought." I looked up. Wild's Tesla was already gone, disappearing into the Austin traffic. I didn't know it then, but that was the last time I would see my sister as a free woman, and the last time I would be safe. Sunday morning, I woke up at 6:30 like always. I went for a run along Lady Bird Lake, showered, made coffee. Everything felt normal. I should have known normal doesn't last when someone wants you dead. But I'm getting ahead of myself again. The run was supposed to clear my head. 7 miles along the trail that loops around the lake, past the downtown skyline, and the joggers with their dogs, and the early morning cyclists who take the whole thing way too seriously. October in Austin meant the mornings were cool enough to breathe low 60s with the kind of sunshine that made you forget it would hit 90 by afternoon. I had my usual route south from my apartment on South Congress, across the pedestrian bridge, then west along the North Shore before looping back. 45 minutes if I pushed it, an hour if I didn't. I pushed it. By the time I got back to my building, my legs were burning and my lungs were screaming, and for a few blissful minutes, I wasn't thinking about Wild or the FBI or the fact that I was about to destroy my family. I was just thinking about breathing. That's when I noticed the truck. Dark blue, older model Texas plates I couldn't quite read from across the street. It was parked in front of the laundromat engine, off windows, tinted just enough that I couldn't see who was inside. I'd noticed it when I left, thought it was weird that someone would be sitting in their car that early on a Sunday. But now, an hour later, it was still there. I told myself it was probably a neighbor, someone who worked weird hours, someone waiting for the laundromat to open. Austin was full of weird people doing weird things at weird times. No reason to be paranoid. I went inside, showered, made breakfast. Greek yogurt with blueberries and black coffee, same as every morning. I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop and tried to focus on work toxicology reports for an unrelated case, a suspected arsenic poisoning in Houston. But my mind kept drifting back to the cafe, to Wild walking away, to the way she'd said, "For your own good," like it was a threat instead of advice. I texted Declan still on for tomorrow, 8 a.m. He replied within minutes. "Yeah, bring everything you've got. This is moving fast." I stared at that message for a long time. Moving fast, which meant the FBI was building a case. which meant I had maybe 24 hours before this became official. Before I had to decide whether to tell them about Wild. Or maybe I'd already decided. Maybe I'd decided the moment I walked into that cafe. I spent the afternoon trying to distract myself. Laundry, dishes, a half-hearted attempt to organize the stack of mail that had been piling up on my kitchen counter for 3 weeks. By 5:30, I was out of distractions and out of groceries, so I grabbed my keys and headed to Whole Foods. The truck was 3 cars behind me on Congress Avenue. I didn't notice it at first. Traffic on Congress was always heavy on Sunday evenings, everyone heading back from brunch or the hiking trails or wherever people in Austin spent their weekends. But at the red light on Riverside, I glanced in my rearview mirror and saw it. Same blue truck, same tinted windows. Coincidence, I told myself. Congress Avenue runs straight through the city. Lots of people use it. But when I turned into the Whole Foods parking lot, the truck kept going. I told myself that proved it. Just another car on the same road, nothing to worry about. I grabbed a cart and wandered through the aisles, picking up the usual salad greens, chicken breast pasta. A pint of Ben & Jerry's I definitely didn't need. The store was crowded with the Sunday evening rush families with kids couples debating which organic quinoa to buy. Normal, safe. By the time I got home, it was almost dark. I parked in my building's lot, grabbed the grocery bags from the trunk, and headed toward the entrance. My apartment building was one of those older South Congress walk-ups with a secured entry keypad on the front door, 3 floors, no elevator. I lived on the 3rd floor because it was cheaper and because I liked being able to see the street below. I was halfway to the door when the headlights hit me. Bright, blinding, coming fast. I spun around, grocery bags swinging, and saw it, the blue truck engine roaring, speeding through the parking lot. It swerved past me close enough that I felt the wind from it, and then it was gone, tail lights disappearing around the corner. I stood there, heart-hammering hands, shaking so hard I almost dropped the bags. The driver had been wearing a baseball cap. That was all I'd seen. A cap pulled low face in shadow. I ran inside, fumbled with the keypad, slammed the door behind me, and took the stairs 2 at a time. By the time I got to my apartment, I was breathing so hard I thought I might pass out. I locked the door, threw the deadbolt, checked the windows. The truck was gone. The street below was empty. I set the groceries on the counter and pulled out my phone. 8:00 p.m., I texted Wild. "We need to talk. This is your last chance." No response. I put the groceries away, made dinner I didn't eat, tried to watch a movie and gave up after 10 minutes. By 10 o'clock, I'd set my alarm for 6 a.m. and was lying in bed staring at the ceiling, trying to convince myself I was safe. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost didn't open it. Stop asking questions. I sat bolt upright, staring at the screen. My hands were shaking again. I took a screenshot, forwarded it to Declan with a message. "Got this tonight. Think someone's following me." He replied immediately, "Stay inside, lock your doors. I'll have a patrol car swing by." I didn't sleep that night. I lay there in the dark, listening to every car that passed, every footstep in the hallway, every creak of the building settling. I told myself I was being paranoid, that the truck was a coincidence, that the text was just someone trying to scare me. I was wrong. By the time the sun came up Monday morning, I was exhausted, wired on adrenaline and bad coffee. I showered, dressed, grabbed my badge and my gun and my keys. I had to be at the FBI field office by 7:45. I had to meet Declan. I had to finish this. I walked out to my car, climbed in, started the engine. The morning was cool and clear, the kind of October day that made you glad to be alive. I should have stayed home. My name is Remy Ashford, and on Monday morning, October 12th, I left my South Congress apartment at 7:30 earlier than usual, hoping to throw off anyone who might be watching. The sleepless night had left my eyes gritty and my hands unsteady on the wheel of my 1998 Honda Civic, but I told myself I would feel safer once I reached the FBI field office. I had a 7:45 meeting with Declan, and I needed to tell him everything: the deleted Instagram story, the threatening text, the blue pickup that had shadowed me all weekend. Traffic on Congress Avenue was thick with commuters. I stayed in the center lane, checking my mirrors every few seconds. At 7:35, I stopped at the red light where Congress meets Riverside Drive, a 5-lane intersection flanked by high-rises and a CVS on the corner. 2 cars idled ahead of me. I glanced in the rearview mirror and my chest tightened. The same dark blue pickup sat 2 vehicles back, its windshield reflecting the morning sun so I couldn't see the driver's face. Texas plates. I tried to read the numbers, but the angle was wrong. The light turned green. The car in front of me rolled forward. I eased off the brake, and in that instant, the blue truck swerved hard into the oncoming lane engine, roaring. I had maybe 2 seconds to understand what was happening before it slammed into my driver's side door at what I later learned was nearly 60 miles per hour in a 35 zone. The impact felt like an explosion. My airbag punched me in the face, filling the cabin with white powder and the chemical smell of deployment. Glass shattered inward, tiny cubes raining over my lap and arms. The world spun, literally, spun as my Civic rotated 180 degrees across the intersection. I heard metal tearing, felt my ribs crack against the door frame, tasted blood. Then a second duller crunch as my passenger side struck a steel lamppost, finally stopping the spin. For a moment there was only silence and the hiss of my radiator. My ears rang. I tried to breathe and pain lanced through my left side broken ribs. I knew instinctively. My head throbbed. Blood trickled from a gash above my eyebrow, warm and sticky. I blinked, trying to focus. The windshield was a spiderweb of cracks. Through it, I saw the blue pickup idling 20 feet away, its front bumper crumpled headlight dangling. The driver's door opened. A man climbed out, tall, maybe 6 feet, wearing a black UT Longhorns hoodie and a baseball cap pulled low. He staggered toward my wreck hands, raised in what looked like an apology. For a second, I thought he was coming to help. Then I smelled the whiskey on him, or rather, I smelled something, a sour reek that seemed theatrical too strong. He leaned down to my shattered window, slurring, "I'm so sorry, ma'am, I didn't see the light. I swear I didn't." Before I could answer, he straightened, glanced over his shoulder at the gathering crowd, and bolted. Not stumbled, sprinted. He ran east down Riverside, dodging a cyclist, and disappeared into an alley behind a taco shop. No drunk person moves that fast. I heard voices, car doors slamming. A woman in scrubs knelt by my window, her face pale. "Don't move, honey ambulance is on the way." Another man older held up his phone. I got his plates TX7YH329. I got video of the whole thing. A third voice, a teenager. He ran the red going like 60 man that was murder. Murder. The word hung in the air. My phone buzzed in the cup holder. I reached for it with my right hand, my left arm wouldn't move, and the screen lit up with a text from Wild. "Heard you had an accident. Hope you're okay." The timestamp read 7:40 a.m., 4 minutes after impact. 4 minutes. I hadn't called anyone. The police hadn't arrived. No news outlet could have reported it yet. She knew. Sirens wailed in the distance. The woman in scrubs pressed a towel to my forehead. "Stay with me, okay? What's your name?" "Remy," I whispered. "Remy Ashford. I'm Raphael paramedic. You're going to be fine, Remy. Can you tell me if anything hurts?" "Ribs, left side, head." He nodded, speaking into a radio clipped to his shoulder. "Female, mid-30s, blunt force trauma, possible rib fractures, head lec, GCS-14. Vitals stable. ETA 2 minutes. The ambulance pulled up lights, strobing red and blue across the intersection. 2 more paramedics unloaded a backboard. Raphael leaned closer. "Did you know that driver—" I looked at Wild's text again. The little heart that had been there before. Now absent, she must have edited it out in my memory. Or maybe I imagined it, and I thought about the blue truck following me yesterday, the anonymous threat the way Kyle Brenner had faked drunkenness and then run like a professional. I thought about my sister, the golden child, the Instagram star, the woman who built a $12 million empire on prescription pills and was now trying to kill me. No, I said, I didn't know him, but I knew who sent him. I woke up in the hospital 6 hours later, ribs taped so tight I could barely draw a breath, head pounding like a construction site. The nurse told me I was lucky the lamppost had absorbed most of the secondary impact. I didn't feel lucky. I felt like a target. The room was small and semi-private, which meant I had a curtain separating me from an elderly woman who snored through her oxygen mask. I'd asked for a private room, willing to pay out of pocket, because I didn't trust the idea of a stranger overhearing my phone calls, but insurance wouldn't cover it, and the hospital was full. So I lay there in the weak October light, filtering through Venetian blinds, trying to piece together what had just happened. At 2 in the afternoon, a doctor came in. Dr. Ellis, her badge said a woman in her 50s, with kind eyes and no-nonsense delivery. 4 fractured ribs on your left side, numbers 4 through 6. Mild concussion. Lacerations above your left eyebrow required 8 stitches. No internal bleeding, but we want to monitor you for 24 hours. You'll be discharged tomorrow morning if your vitals stay stable. Can I have visitors? I asked. Family and close friends only. We don't want you overstimulated. At 3:30, Declan walked in his jacket, rumpled a coffee stain on his tie. He pulled a plastic chair close to the bed and kept his voice low. How are you feeling? Like I got hit by a truck. You did. He set a manila folder on the blanket. Austin PD found the pickup abandoned in a parking lot in Round Rock, about 30 miles north. Rental from Enterprise under a fake ID name on the license was Michael Torres, but the address doesn't exist, and the credit card was a prepaid Visa bought with cash. No prints on the steering wheel wiped clean, but the truck had a GPS tracker installed by the rental company. We pulled the route data, and it left a lot near your apartment building at 7:20 this morning. Followed you north on Congress. After the crash, it drove straight to Round Rock. Parked at 8:15, driver walked away. We have security footage of a man in a black hoodie and cap getting into a silver sedan, plates obscured. I closed my eyes. Do you think this is connected to Wild? Declan hesitated. I told him about the confrontation at Cafe Medici, the anonymous threat on Sunday night, and Wild's text 4 minutes after the collision. She knew Declan. She knew before anyone else. He leaned back, rubbing his jaw. We need to move fast, but right now we don't have enough for an arrest warrant. It's all circumstantial. We need direct evidence linking her to the driver or the rental. Then find it. We're trying. FBI's tech team is analyzing the Bitcoin payments from the anonymous tip tracing the wallet. If we can connect that wallet to Wild or anyone in her network, we'll have leverage. He stood. In the meantime, you need to rest, and be careful. If she's willing to kill you once, she'll try again. After he left, I stared at the ceiling tiles, counting the water stains. At 6 o'clock, my parents arrived. My father, Sterling Ashford, 64, still moved with the brisk efficiency of a man who'd spent 30 years at Goldman Sachs. My mother, Estelle, 62, wore a cashmere cardigan and pearls, even to a hospital visit. They hugged me carefully, avoiding my bandaged ribs. We came as soon as we heard, my mother said, settling into the chair Declan had vacated. The police called us. They said someone ran a red light. Yeah, hit and run. My father frowned. What were you doing on Congress at that hour? I thought you worked downtown. It was an odd question. Not are you in pain or do you need anything, but what were you doing there? I studied his face. I was driving to the office for a meeting. With whom? Dad, does it matter? Estelle glanced at her phone for the 3rd time in 2 minutes, thumbs flying across the screen. I couldn't see what she was typing, but the speed and frequency made my skin prickle. She looked up, caught me watching, and smiled too brightly. We're just worried, honey. You know how dangerous Austin traffic is. They stayed 20 minutes making small talk about hospital food and insurance deductibles, and then left citing an evening appointment. I didn't believe them. At 7:15, Wild walked in. I hadn't invited her. She carried a bouquet of white lilies, my favorite flower, when I was 10, but she knew perfectly well I'd developed a mild allergy to the pollen in my 20s. It made my eyes water and my nose itch. She set the vase on the bedside table, the heavy perfume filling the small room, and sat down, taking my hand. I'm so glad you're okay, she said, her voice soft and concerned. Car accidents are terrifying. You just never know when something random can change your life. She emphasized the word random, holding my gaze. I hope you're being careful, Remy. You work such a stressful job. Maybe you should take some time off. Rest. Stay out of complicated situations. It wasn't a suggestion. It was a warning. Thanks for the flowers, I said evenly. Of course. Sisters look out for each other. She squeezed my hand once, stood, and left without another word. After she was gone, I pressed the call button. The nurse appeared, a young man with a tired smile. Can you take those lilies away? I asked. "I'm allergic." "Sure thing." He carried the vase out. I lay back, pulse hammering. She brought them to make me uncomfortable. Even here, even now, she's trying to hurt me. At 11:30, after I'd taken my pain medication and was drifting toward sleep, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. The message was short. "You should have stayed out of this." I took a screenshot and forwarded it to Declan with a single line. "Another threat, trace this." Then I set the phone face down on the table and stared at the darkened window. I wasn't scared anymore. I was angry. And anger, I realized, was a kind of fuel. I was discharged Tuesday morning, ribs taped tight, a bottle of Vicodin in my hand. I thought the worst was over. I had no idea that while I was recovering, my sister was planting evidence to destroy my career. I didn't know about any of this until weeks later when the FBI's forensic team pieced it together from cell tower data security footage and witness interviews. But I'll tell you now so you understand just how deep this went. On Tuesday, October 13th at 3 in the afternoon, while I was signing discharge papers at Del Seaton Wild, met Kyle Brenner in a parking lot in Round Rock. Kyle was 38, a professional with a record stretching back to his 20s armed robbery and Dallas assault in Houston, a string of burglaries across the Southwest. He'd done 8 years in Huntsville and come out with a new skill set and no illusions about morality. Wild had already paid him $25,000 to run me off the road. Now she handed him an envelope containing $8,000 in cash for a second job. "I need you to plant something," she said, according to the statement Kyle gave prosecutors months later in exchange for a reduced sentence. 500 oxycodone pills and $42,000. Make it look like she's been skimming. Kyle opened the envelope, counted the bills, and nodded. Wildy handed him a printout, a floor plan of my apartment at 1847 South Congress Avenue, Unit 302. She'd visited 2 months earlier ostensibly to admire my decorating and had snapped photos on her phone under the guise of getting ideas for her own place. The layout was precise: bedroom, closet, kitchen, back stairwell. When Kyle asked, "Tonight. She'll be home, but she's on pain medication. She'll be asleep by 7. At 5 o'clock, I unlocked my apartment door, set my hospital bag on the floor, and collapsed onto the couch. My ribs throbbed. I swallowed 2 Vicodin, chased them with water, and fell asleep within 15 minutes. At 7:30, Kyle Brenner arrived at my building. He parked 3 blocks away, walked through the alley behind the complex, and approached the back stairwell, a fire escape that opened onto the 3rd-floor hallway. The building was old, built in the 80s, and the stairwell had no security camera. Kyle pulled a tension wrench and a rake pick from his jacket and worked the lock on the stairwell door for 90 seconds. It clicked open. He climbed to the 3rd floor, his size 11 work boots leaving a faint tread mark on the welcome mat outside my door. He picked my apartment lock the same way, smooth and practiced, and slipped inside. I was asleep on the couch 10 feet away, breath-shallow ribs rising and falling under the blanket. Kyle moved past me into the bedroom. He opened the closet, pulled a shoebox from the top shelf, and tucked a Ziploc bag containing 500 oxycodone tablets, each stamped with the manufacturer's code. Legitimate pills stolen from a pharmacy shipment inside the box, then replaced it on the shelf. Next, he went to the kitchen, pulled the refrigerator away from the wall, and taped a vacuum-sealed bundle of $42,000 in $100 bills to the back panel. He slid the fridge back into place. He was careful. He wore nitrile gloves, but he made 2 mistakes. First, the tread of his boot left a partial print on the rubber mat in the stairwell, distinct enough for forensics to measure later. Second, a black nylon fiber from his gloves snagged on the metal clasp of my closet door handle. It was a single thread, nearly invisible, but it would be enough. Kyle left at 7:52. I slept through the entire thing. The next morning, Wednesday, October 14th at 11:15, Wild sat down across from Enzo Novak at Higher Grounds Coffee in downtown Austin. Enzo was 27, a freelance hacker who advertised his services on encrypted forums under the handle wildflower_TX. He wore a faded Radiohead t-shirt and had a laptop open on the table, a cheap Chromebook he'd bought with cash specifically for this job. Wild slid a folded piece of paper across the table. On it was my personal email address. My work schedule and a list of instructions create fake correspondence with a fictitious pharmaceutical sales rep forge invoices, open an offshore account in my name and backdate transactions to make it look like I'd been taking bribes for months. Fortuna Holdings, Wild said, leaning forward. Cayman Islands, 220,000. Enzo nodded, fingers already moving across the keyboard. Wild reached over and typed the account name herself, her fingertips brushing the keys, ERY. She didn't wear gloves. It would have looked suspicious in a crowded coffee shop, and she didn't think it mattered. The laptop was a burner scheduled to be wiped and trashed within 48 hours. But forensics would recover it from a dumpster behind Enzo's apartment 3 weeks later. And the partial prints on those keys would match the ones in the Texas DPS database under her name, from a wellness instructor certification she'd gotten in 2022. I transferred the Bitcoin yesterday, Wild said. 18,000. You'll have it confirmed by tonight. Enzo checked his phone, scrolled through a crypto wallet app, and nodded. Yeah, I see it. I'll have everything done in 48 hours. She won't know what hit her. Wild smiled. Good. She left the coffee shop at 11:45, climbed into her Tesla, and drove back to her Barton Creek apartment. Enzo finished his latte, closed the laptop, and walked 3 blocks to a co-working space, where he'd rent a desk under a fake name and spend the next 2 days fabricating my financial ruin. I didn't know any of this was happening. I was at home struggling to breathe without pain, answering emails from colleagues who'd heard about the accident, trying to convince myself I was safe. But I wasn't safe. While I lay on my couch, my sister was building a cage around me, pills, cash, fake emails, offshore accounts. She wasn't just trying to kill me. She was trying to erase me to make sure that even if I survived, no one would believe a word I said. And for a while, it almost worked. Tuesday morning, I woke to a voicemail from Special Agent Dorian Huxley, FBI Internal Affairs. Agent Ashford, we need to speak with you immediately. Please come to the field office at 9 a.m. My blood turned to ice. Internal Affairs only called when an agent was under investigation. I dressed in slacks and a blazer, trying to project competence, even though my ribs still ached with every breath. At 8:45, I walked into the FBI field office on East 8th Street, took the elevator to the 3rd floor, a level I'd never visited in 12 years, and knocked on a frosted glass door marked Internal Affairs Division. A secretary waved me into a windowless conference room. Agent Dorian Huxley sat across the table, a man in his 50s with silver hair and the flat, unreadable expression of someone who'd spent 25 years investigating corrupt agents. Beside him sat another IA officer, younger, with a laptop open. Agent Ashford, Dorian said, gesturing to a chair. Thank you for coming in. We received an anonymous tip Monday evening alleging that you are in possession of controlled substances and have accepted bribes. Do you have any comment? I felt the floor tilt. That's absurd. The tip included specific details, he interrupted. 500 oxycodone tablets, $42,000 in cash hidden in your apartment. We'd like to conduct a search. Will you consent? I knew my rights. 4th Amendment. They needed a warrant unless I agreed, but refusing would make me look guilty, and I had nothing to hide. Or so I thought. Search it, I said. You won't find anything. At 2 o'clock that afternoon, I stood in my own living room while 4 IA agents pulled on latex gloves and began methodically dismantling my life. They opened drawers, flipped couch cushions, checked behind picture frames. At 2:37, one of them called from the bedroom. Agent Huxley, you need to see this. I followed Dorian into my closet. The agent held up a shoebox from the top shelf. Inside, loose in a gallon Ziploc bag, were hundreds of white tablets stamped with the manufacturer's code for oxycodone. My stomach dropped. I've never seen those before, I said, my voice shaking. Someone planted them. Dorian's face remained expressionless. We'll see. At 2:45, another agent called from the kitchen. He'd pulled the refrigerator away from the wall and found a vacuum-sealed bundle of cash taped to the back panel. $42,000 in hundreds. I felt like I was watching it happen to someone else. I didn't put that there. Someone broke in. Someone is framing me. When were you last home? Dorian asked. I came home Sunday evening after I was discharged from the hospital. I slept here Sunday night, went grocery shopping Monday around 10, came back at 11:45, and stayed here the rest of Monday afternoon and evening. So someone could have broken in Sunday night or Monday morning while you were out. Yes, check for signs of forced entry. At 3 o'clock, the FBI's evidence response team arrived with fingerprint kits, luminol, and a camera. They spent an hour combing through my apartment. The lead technician, a woman named Agent Rivera, briefed Dorian in the hallway while I sat on my couch, numb. "No signs of forced entry on the front door," she said. "Deadbolt intact, no scratches on the lock. But the back stairwell door shows faint tool marks on the cylinder, consistent with a tension wrench and pick. We found a partial boot print on the landing mat, men's size 11 fresh tread, deposited within the last 48 hours. We also recovered a black nylon fiber snagged on the bedroom closet door handle. Doesn't match any of Agent Ashford's clothing." Dorian nodded. "So someone did break in." "The evidence supports that," Rivera said carefully. "But it doesn't rule out the possibility that Agent Ashford staged it herself to create an alibi." At 5 o'clock, Dorian called me into a small office down the hall. He sat behind a desk, hands folded. "We found controlled substances and cash," he said. "You claim you were framed. The break-in evidence is suggestive but not conclusive. We can't rule out the possibility that you orchestrated this yourself." "I'm being set up," I said, my voice raw. "My sister Wild Ashford runs a drug trafficking ring. I discovered it last week and confronted her. She threatened me. Then the car crash, I believe she hired someone to kill me. Now this, she's destroying my credibility before I can report her. Do you have evidence linking your sister to any of this?" "Not yet. I'm gathering it. That's why she's escalating." Dorian leaned back. "If you're telling the truth, someone is running a sophisticated campaign against you. If you're lying, you're a very dangerous person. Either way, I can't let you continue working while we investigate." He opened a folder and slid a form across the desk. "Effective immediately, you are suspended without pay pending investigation. You'll surrender your badge, firearm, and credentials now. You are not under arrest. The break-in evidence creates reasonable doubt, and your 12-year record is spotless. But we need to investigate further before deciding whether to file charges." I felt like I'd been punched. "What are my conditions?" "You must remain available for questioning. You may not leave the Austin area. You'll report to this office every Friday at 9 a.m. If we find evidence of criminal activity or if you flee, a warrant will be issued for your arrest. Do you understand?" "Yes." I handed over my badge, my Glock 19, and my FBI identification card. Dorian placed them in a manila envelope and sealed it. "We'll be in touch." At 6 o'clock, I sat alone in my apartment, staring at the empty holster on my hip and the empty space in my wallet where my credentials had been. I felt stripped, violated, powerless. I texted Declan, "They suspended me, found drugs and cash. I didn't do it. Wild framed me." His reply came immediately. "I believe you. Meet me tomorrow morning. We'll figure this out." Wednesday and Thursday, I spent 48 hours retracing every step. I reviewed the building's security footage. The back stairwell had no camera, a blind spot. The front entrance camera showed me leaving at 10 Monday morning, returning at 11:45. No one else entered through the front. I knocked on my neighbors' doors and asked if they'd seen or heard anything unusual. No one had. Whoever broke in Kyle, I would later learn, was a professional. He used the back stairwell, wore gloves, avoided cameras, and left only trace evidence. I couldn't prove Wild had done this. Not yet, but I knew. Thursday evening at 8 o'clock, my phone rang. My mother. "Remy, sweetheart." Estelle said, her voice warm and syrupy. "I heard about your trouble at work. Your father and I are so sorry. We want to support you. Why don't you come to brunch this Sunday, just family? We need to talk." I hesitated. "Will Wild be there?" "Of course. She's worried about you, too. Please come, honey. We love you." My chest tightened. Part of me wanted to refuse. Wild would be there, and that meant danger. My parents somehow knew about the IA investigation, which should have been confidential, which meant they were either complicit or Wild had told them. But another part of me, the part that still craved my family's love, that still hoped they might believe me, wanted answers. "All right," I said. "What time?" 11 Sunday morning, darling." After I hung up, I texted Declan, "My mom invited me to brunch Sunday. Wild will be there. I'm going." His response was immediate. Bad idea. You're suspended vulnerable. If Wild tries something, then I'll have witnesses. I'm not hiding. I need to confront her. At least let me know where you are. Text me every 30 minutes. Deal. I set my phone down and stared out the window at the dark street below. I didn't know it then, but Sunday brunch would be the moment Wild stopped playing cat and mouse. She'd tried to destroy my career. Now she would try to destroy my life. And I was walking straight into her trap. Friday morning, I woke suspended, humiliated, without my badge or my gun. I felt like I'd lost my identity. When my phone rang at 10, Declan, I grabbed it like a lifeline. "Meet me at Patika in 30 minutes, he said. "We need to talk." Patika was a quiet coffee shop on South Lamar, far enough from my apartment that I didn't worry about neighbors watching. I was growing paranoid. Every car that slowed near my building, every stranger who glanced my way felt like surveillance. I drove the long way, checking my mirrors, and arrived at 10:25. Declan was already there, sitting at a corner table with 2 black coffees. "How are you holding up?" he asked. "I'm not." I wrapped my hands around the cup, grateful for the warmth. "Tell me you found something." "Digital forensics is analyzing the fake emails," he said. "The keystroke patterns don't match your typing style. The IP addresses trace back to a Tor network, definitely not from your home. We're building a case that you were framed, but it takes time. Weeks, maybe months." "I don't have weeks," I said. "Wild is escalating." "I know." He leaned forward, which is why I'm worried about Sunday. I'd told him about my mother's invitation the night before. Now, in daylight, with Declan's gray eyes fixed on mine, I felt the weight of what I was planning. "Don't go," he said. "This could be a trap." "It's my parents' house," I said. "Public space, witnesses. What could she do? She hired someone to run you off the road and plant drugs in your apartment. She doesn't play by the rules." "That's why I need to record everything. If she says anything incriminating, I'll have proof. You're suspended. You can't use FBI equipment. I'll use my phone, a recording app. I'll leave it running in my purse." Declan rubbed his jaw, clearly unhappy. "All right, but text me every 30 minutes. If I don't hear from you, I'm coming." "Deal." Saturday, I spent the day preparing. I pulled up my medical records and reviewed my shellfish allergy diagnosed when I was 12 after I ate crab cakes at a family reunion and went into anaphylactic shock. The paramedics had arrived in time, administered epinephrine, and saved my life. The allergist had told my parents it was a level 4 anaphylaxis throat, closes within 5 to 10 minutes, death possible within 15 to 20 if untreated. I'd carried 2 EpiPens ever since, one in my purse and one in my car. I sat on my couch and reviewed the details for Sunday, my parents' house in Westlake Hills, 11 a.m. I pictured the layout, the wide front porch, the formal dining room where we'd eaten 100 Sunday dinners, the kitchen where my mother had always refused help because she liked things done her way. I pictured Wild sitting across from me, smiling. Why was I going? Because I needed to look Wild in the eye. Because I needed to ask my parents if they knew what she was doing. Because maybe, just maybe, if I confronted her in front of them, they would finally see the truth. Or maybe I was walking into a trap. But I'd been a target my whole life, always trying to prove I was good enough, smart enough, deserving of their love. Maybe it was time to stop trying. Maybe it was time to demand answers. That evening, I tested the recording app on my phone. It worked perfectly, capturing voices clearly even from inside my purse. I charged my phone to 100%. I laid out my clothes for Sunday: jeans, a cream blouse, a blazer, casual but professional. I wanted to look calm, even if I didn't feel it. I checked my EpiPens. Both were full, neither expired. At 8 p.m., I texted Declan, "Ready for tomorrow. I'll text at 11:30 noon, 12:30. His reply came immediately, "Be careful." I went to bed at 10, but sleep didn't come easily. I dreamed about childhood Wild always getting the bigger slice of cake, the nicer gift. I was 8 years old again, locked in the hallway closet for 2 hours because Wild had told our parents I'd broken her doll. I hadn't. She'd broken it herself and blamed me. When my father finally let me out, I was crying so hard I couldn't breathe. He didn't punish Wild. He said I was being dramatic. I woke at 2 a.m. drenched in sweat. I couldn't fall back asleep. At 6, I gave up, made coffee, and sat on my balcony, watching the sunrise paint the sky orange and pink over the Austin skyline. The air was cool, the city quiet. For a moment, I felt almost peaceful. Then I thought about what I was about to do, and the peace evaporated. At 10 Sunday morning, I showered, dressed, and picked up my purse. My phone was inside the recording app, ready. I stood at my apartment door, hand on the knob, and paused. I told myself it was just a family meal, but part of me knew I was walking into something I couldn't walk out of. I opened the door, walked to my car, and drove west toward Westlake Hills. The roads were empty, the sky clear. I turned onto the highway and watched the city fall away behind me. My hands were steady on the wheel, my heartbeat was not. By the time I realized what Wilde had planned, it would be too late to stop it. But it wouldn't be too late to survive. Sunday morning, I drove to my parents' house in Westlake Hills. The $1.2 million home sat on a hill overlooking downtown Austin, all limestone and floor-to-ceiling windows. I'd always felt small there. That day, I felt like prey. Wilde's white Tesla was already parked in the driveway. She'd arrived early. I pulled in beside it, grabbed my purse phone inside recording app ready, and walked to the front door. Before I could knock, my mother opened it, arms outstretched. "Remy, darling." She hugged me tight. I winced. My ribs were still healing. She didn't notice. Estelle led me through the foyer into the formal dining room. My father, Sterling, sat at the head of the table in a pressed polo shirt, reading the Wall Street Journal. Wilde sat across from the empty chair, clearly meant for me. The table was set for 4 white plates, cloth napkins, crystal water glasses. Everything looked perfect. Too perfect. "Good morning, Remy." Wilde said, her voice smooth as honey. She wore a cream cashmere sweater and held a mimosa in one hand. She looked calm, almost serene. No guilt, no fear, just watching. I sat down carefully, setting my purse on the floor beside my chair. I pressed the record button on my phone app through the fabric, praying it would pick up voices clearly. "So," Sterling said, folding his newspaper, "your mother tells me you're having legal trouble at work." I took a breath. "I'm being framed. Someone planted drugs in my apartment and forged emails to make it look like I was taking bribes. I've been suspended pending investigation, but I didn't do it." My parents exchanged a glance. My mother's lips tightened. "Remy, how could you be so careless?" "I wasn't careless. I was set up." "By whom?" Sterling asked, his tone skeptical. I looked at Wilde. She sipped her mimosa, eyes fixed on me, unblinking. I wanted to say her name, wanted to accuse her right there, but I had no proof yet. Not enough. "I'm working on finding out," I said quietly. Estelle stood and disappeared into the kitchen. Wilde leaned back in her chair, turning the mimosa glass slowly in her hand. "It must be so hard," she said, "not knowing who to trust." I didn't answer. At 11:45, Estelle returned, carrying a tray of spinach and feta quiche, a fruit salad, croissants, and a carafe of coffee. She set a plate in front of each of us, already served, no chance to see what went into the food. My slice of quiche looked perfect, golden crust, creamy filling flecked with green. "New recipe," Estelle said brightly. "I've been experimenting." We ate. The conversation drifted to childhood. Estelle laughed, touching Wilde's hand. "Remy, you were always so serious. Wilde was the fun one." The familiar ache settled in my chest. I cut into my quiche, chewed, swallowed. It tasted rich, savory, slightly salty. I took another bite, then a third. At 12:15, my throat started to itch. I coughed, reached for my water glass, drank. The itch intensified. My tongue felt thick. I coughed again, harder, and felt my airway tighten. Something was wrong. At 12:17, my lips began to swell. My throat was closing. I couldn't get enough air. I gasped, clawing at my collar. "Something's wrong." Wilde leaned forward, eyes wide with fake concern. "Oh my God, Remy, are you okay?" Estelle stood halfway, hand to her mouth. "Remy, what's happening?" Sterling pulled out his phone slowly, as if moving through water. He dialed 911, but didn't speak, yet just held the phone waiting. I couldn't breathe. My vision blurred. I grabbed my purse, dumped the contents onto the floor, wallet, keys, lipstick, EpiPen. My hands shook as I fumbled with the cap, yanked it off, jammed the pen into my right thigh, through my jeans, and pressed the button. The needle punched through fabric and skin. Epinephrine flooded my system like fire. For 10 seconds, nothing happened. Then my throat began to open. Air rushed in sweet and cold. I gasped, shuddering sweat pouring down my face. At 12:20, I could breathe again. Barely. I was trembling, drenched, but alive. I looked down at my plate, the quiche. "What's in this?" I rasped, staring at my mother. Estelle blinked. "Spinach feta eggs." And I used a new recipe oyster sauce for umami flavor. Oyster sauce, shellfish. You know I'm allergic to shellfish. Estelle's face crumpled. "I forgot, it's been so many years since—" "You were there when I almost died at 12. You didn't forget." Wild cut-in voice, soft and soothing. "Remy, it was an accident. Mom's getting older, her memory isn't—" "Shut up, Wild." The room went silent. I'd never spoken to her like that in front of our parents. Sterling set his phone down. Estelle stared at me, mouth open. I looked at Wild. For a split second, I saw it, a faint smile barely there, curling at the corner of her lips. Then it was gone. She'd given the oyster sauce to our mother. She'd told her to use it. She'd known exactly what would happen. At 12:30, an ambulance pulled into the driveway, lights flashing. 2 paramedics came to the door. One checked my pulse, asked questions, recommended I go to the hospital for observation. "No," I said. "I'm fine. Ma'am, anaphylaxis can have secondary reactions." I said no. I didn't trust them. Not here. Not in front of my family. If I went to a hospital, Wild would follow. She'd find a way. I grabbed my plate, the quiche still sitting there half-eaten, and wrapped it in a paper napkin. Evidence. The paramedics exchanged glances but didn't stop me. I walked to the door legs unsteady. Behind me, Estelle called out, voice high and hurt. "Remy, you're being dramatic." I didn't turn around. I got into my car, set the wrapped plate carefully on the passenger seat, and locked the doors. My hands were still shaking. I looked at the plate, the pale quiche filling, and thought, oyster sauce. Estelle has never cooked with oyster sauce. Someone gave it to her. Someone told her to use it. I texted Declan, "They tried to kill me. I need help." I started the engine and pulled out of the driveway. In my rearview mirror, I saw Wild standing at the front door, arms crossed, watching. Our eyes met. She smiled, waved. I didn't have proof yet, but I would. I drove home shaking the wrapped plate sitting on the passenger seat beside me. I called Declan before I'd even unlocked my door. "I need you to test this," I said. This was attempted murder. He arrived at 1:30, still in his work clothes, tie loosened. I handed him the plate quiche wrapped in a paper napkin, now sealed in a gallon Ziploc bag I'd pulled from my kitchen drawer. He held it up to the light, examined the pale filling flecked with spinach and feta. "You're sure about this?" he asked. My throat closed. I couldn't breathe. I had to stab myself with an EpiPen in front of my family. "Yes, I'm sure." He scraped a sample into a small evidence container, sealed it, labeled it with the date and time. The container was FBI standard, a tamper-proof plastic vial with a red evidence seal that would show any attempt to open it. He tucked it into his jacket pocket. "If IA finds out I'm running tests for you while you're suspended, it could jeopardize both our careers." "I almost died, Declan. I need proof." He nodded slowly. "All right, but we do this off the books." Monday morning at 8, Declan sent the sample to a private lab in Houston, a place that did contract work for law enforcement but didn't report directly to the Bureau. He paid out of pocket $300 for a rush analysis. I sat in my apartment all day staring at my phone, waiting. At 3 o'clock Monday afternoon, he called. "Results are in." I held my breath. And positive for shellfish protein. Oyster extract 10 milligrams concentration, enough to trigger a severe reaction in someone with your allergy level, but not a lethal dose. Relief and rage flooded through me in equal measure. "So I was right." "You were right." He paused. "But there's a problem." "What problem?" "The sample was contaminated. You wrapped it in a napkin, carried it in your car, stored it in a Ziploc bag. Chain of custody is broken. There's no way to prove your mother deliberately added the oyster sauce versus accidentally using it. Oyster sauce is a common ingredient. A defense attorney would argue innocent mistake that Estelle simply forgot about your allergy. In a courtroom, the standard is proof beyond a reasonable doubt. Right now, we have reasonable doubt working against us. I sank onto my couch, the irony crushing me. I'd spent 12 years building airtight forensic cases, testifying in federal court about the smallest traces of poison, and now my own evidence was worthless. So she gets away with it. Not if we catch her trying again, and this time we record everything. I sat down on my couch, ribs aching. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying Wild will try again," Declan said. "The car crash didn't work. The frame job takes time. The poisoning failed because you had an EpiPen. She's escalating. Next time she'll go for a lethal dose. So what do I do? What if you gave her another chance?" His voice was careful, measured. "What if you made yourself bait?" I understood immediately. "You want me to walk into a trap. A controlled trap. You wear a body camera. We set up surveillance. You pretend to drink the poison. We catch her in the act." "Declan, that's insane. You're talking about letting my sister poison me." "Not letting, controlling, full medical backup on standby, tactical team outside. You fake drinking the tea or wine or whatever she offers. We get her on camera confessing and we move in before anything happens to you. And if something goes wrong, if the EpiPen doesn't work, if you're too slow, then I'll have a murder on video," he said quietly. "And either way, she goes to prison." I closed my eyes. 12 years I'd spent analyzing poisons, always on the outside studying death. Now I was inside it. "Let me talk to my team," Declan said. "If we do this, we do it right. Full medical support, tactical backup, every precaution." He paused. "We'll wire you with a high-definition body cam hidden in a brooch or button, live streaming to our van. Medical team will include a paramedic and an ER doctor parked 2 blocks away, ready to breach within 60 seconds. Tactical Unit 3 agents, armed, positioned at Wild's building exits. Surveillance equipment, monitoring every window. You won't be alone." The detail was reassuring and terrifying at once. "How do I get her to try again?" "Reach out, show weakness. Tell her you're sorry for accusing her, that you want to talk, just the two of you. Make it her idea." "She'll know it's a trap." "Maybe, but she's arrogant. She thinks she's smarter than you. Use that." Monday evening at 8, I sat on my couch, phone in hand, staring at Wild's contact. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. I thought about the smile that had flickered across her face when my throat was closing. I thought about the Tesla already parked in my parents' driveway when I arrived. She'd been there early, helping with the food. I thought about Estelle saying I forgot, and the way Sterling had dialed 911 so slowly, as if he were buying time. I typed, "Can we talk, just the two of us? I want to understand. I'm sorry about what happened Sunday." I hit send before I could change my mind. Then I waited. 1 minute, 2, 5. I paced the length of my apartment, checking my phone every 30 seconds. 10 minutes. Maybe she wouldn't answer. Maybe she saw through it. 15 minutes. My palms were sweating. I set the phone face down on the coffee table, afraid to look. Then it buzzed. "Wild, come over tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Let's talk, sis." I stared at the screen. The message was short, confident. The word sis felt like a mockery, fake intimacy wrapped around a blade. My hands were shaking again. I texted Declan. She took the bait. Tomorrow night, 8 p.m., her apartment. His reply came immediately. "We have 24 hours to prepare. Let's make sure it's enough." I stood in my apartment, ribs still aching, holding the printout of the lab results, positive for shellfish protein, 10 milligrams severe, but not lethal. I thought about the last 12 years standing in courtrooms and labs explaining how people died. I'd always been on the outside. Now I was inside. I picked up my phone and looked at Wild's message again. "Let's talk, sis." I whispered into the empty room. "All right, Wild, let's talk." Tomorrow night I would walk into my sister's apartment believing she wanted me dead. But this time I wouldn't walk in alone. And this time I would make sure the whole world saw exactly who she was. Tuesday morning I walked into the FBI building for the first time since my suspension. Not as an agent, as bait. Declan met me in the lobby and led me to a secure room on the 4th floor, windowless and soundproof. Inside, a woman in a white coat stood beside a table covered with medical equipment. She was in her mid-40s with steel gray hair pulled into a bun and the calm, competent air of someone who'd spent decades handling emergencies. Remy Ashford. Declan said, "This is Dr. Lillian Hayes, FBI Medical Unit." She's a forensic physician with 20 years' experience in controlled exposure operations. Dr. Hayes shook my hand, her grip firm. "What you're proposing is extremely dangerous," she said without preamble. "Even a small amount of shellfish protein can trigger fatal anaphylaxis. Your medical history shows a level 4 allergy. That means your throat could close in under 5 minutes. That's why I need your help," I said, "to minimize the risk while maximizing the evidence." She studied me for a long moment, then nodded. "All right, let's talk about equipment." She picked up a black smartwatch from the table. "This is a biometric monitor, FBI issued and encrypted. It tracks your heart rate, blood pressure, oxygen saturation, and EKG in real time. Data transmits over 4G to Agent Royce's tablet, no Wi-Fi needed, so it can't be jammed or blocked. If your vitals crash, we'll know immediately." Next, she held up a small device the size of a USB drive. "Subcutaneous epinephrine autoinjector, 0.5 milligrams preloaded. We'll hide it in your bra strap. Injection into the chest provides faster absorption than the thigh. You press here," she demonstrated, "and the needle deploys. It's discreet enough that Wild won't notice until it's too late. And if that doesn't work?" She handed me a standard EpiPen. "Back up in your jacket pocket." Declan laid out the rest of the equipment. A decorative brooch, actually a body camera, 1080p, high-definition 128 gigabytes of storage, 6-hour battery, 120-degree wide-angle lens, a silver ring for my right index finger, an omnidirectional microphone that would record audio even when my hand moved. "You'll be wired better than most undercover operatives," Declan said. At 10 o'clock, Dr. Hayes began the medical prophylaxis. She inserted an IV line into my left arm and started an infusion of diphenhydramine, 50 milligrams, to reduce the severity of any allergic reaction. Then she injected dexamethasone, 10 milligrams, a corticosteroid that would temporarily suppress my immune system for 12 to 18 hours. Finally, she handed me a pill Montelukast, 10 milligrams, a leukotriene inhibitor to block the inflammatory response. "This won't prevent anaphylaxis," she said, "but it will delay the onset. Normally, you'd have 5 minutes before your airway closes. With these drugs, you might have 10 to 15. That gives the rescue team time to reach you." I swallowed the pill and watched the clear liquid drip from the IV bag into my arm. My hands were steady, but my heart was racing. At noon, we moved to a tactical briefing. Declan's team consisted of 4 FBI agents, including himself, and 1 paramedic, Rafael Ibarra, the same man who'd treated me after the car crash. He gave me a small nod when I entered the room. I was grateful to see a familiar face. "Target location," Declan said, pulling up a map on the screen. "Wild Ashford's apartment, 2500 Barton Creek Boulevard, Unit 1804, 18th floor, luxury high-rise. We'll position in the parking garage, level B2, directly below her building. Elevator from B2 to the 18th floor takes 45 seconds. Stairwell backup is 2 minutes 30 seconds. He pointed to a diagram. "Remy, you'll signal us by tapping your ring twice when you're ready for the breach. But if your biometric watch detects a heart rate over 150 beats per minute, combined with oxygen saturation below 90%, we breach automatically. That means you're going into shock and can't signal." 45 seconds, I repeated. "That's how long I have." "That's how long we need," Declan corrected. "You'll have the epinephrine injectors. Use them if necessary. Our job is to get to you before it comes to that." At 3 in the afternoon, Dr. Hayes taught me the fake drinking technique. She filled a glass with water and set it on the table. "Raise the cup to your lips," she said. "Tilt it slightly. Let the liquid touch your lips, but don't swallow. While you're pretending to drink, your left hand, hidden by the cup, opens the cap of a small vial in your jacket pocket. When you lower the cup, you pour 80% of the liquid into the vial. Close the cap with one hand. Set the cup down. Continue the conversation naturally." It sounded simple. It wasn't. The hand coordination required to open a vial, pour liquid, and close the cap without looking or interrupting a conversation took practice. I spilled water on my jacket 3 times. Dr. Hayes made me repeat it again and again. By the 30th repetition, my hands moved smoothly. By the 47th, Dr. Hayes nodded. "You've got it." At 6 o'clock, Declan drove me back to my apartment. "You need rest," he said. "This won't work if you're exhausted." I showered and dressed carefully. Jeans, a cream blouse, a navy blazer with hidden pockets deep enough to hold the sample vial, and the backup EpiPen. I pinned the body camera brooch to my lapel, checked the angle in the mirror. I slid the smart ring onto my right index finger. It felt heavier than it looked. At 7:15, my phone buzzed. "Declan, team in position, garage B2. You don't have to do this." I looked at myself in the mirror. The bruises from the car crash were fading to yellow-green. My ribs still ached with every breath. I thought about Wild's smile when my throat had closed at Sunday brunch. I thought about the 12 years I'd spent building a career that she'd destroyed in a week. I texted back, "Yes, I do." I grabbed my keys and walked to my car. Wild had taken everything: my career, my family, nearly my life. Tonight I would take it all back. 8 o'clock. Showtime. Stop. Before I take the next step, before I risk everything I want to know, you're truly invested. Comment any number below if you're prepared for what's about to unfold. Because what happens next will test everything I thought I knew about family, justice, and survival. A note: this story weaves fact with creative narrative. Some elements are fictional for dramatic effect. Not comfortable with that exit now. Still here. Good. Let's finish what we started. I parked in the visitor lot at 7:55. For 3 minutes, I sat in my car watching the biometric smartwatch on my wrist heart rate, 98 beats per minute, elevated but controlled. I touched the brooch on my lapel and felt the faint warmth of the recording, LED. Then I got out and walked inside. The elevator to the 18th floor felt endless. My pulse climbed to 105. The watch vibrated once a warning. I took a slow breath. At 8 o'clock, I knocked on apartment 1804. Wild opened the door immediately. She'd been waiting. "Hello, Sit," she said, smiling. "Come in." Her apartment was all open space and light floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Austin skyline, white leather sofas, a glass coffee table so spotless it looked unused. Nothing personal. No photographs, no clutter. It felt like a showroom. I stepped inside. The door closed behind me with a soft click. I glanced around, noting exits. There was only one: the door I just entered. The balcony door was locked, 18 floors up. No escape. My heart rate spiked to 105. The watch vibrated again. Wild gestured toward a small dining table near the windows. 2 chairs, 2 teacups already set out, steam rising. "Sit," she said. I made tea. I walked to the table, slowly cataloging everything. Body camera recording, green LED faint in the window's reflection. Smart ring active. I could hear the tiny hum only I could hear. Vial in my left jacket pocket. Subcutaneous injector hidden in my bra strap. Backup EpiPen in my right pocket. I sat. Wild sat across from me and pushed one of the cups toward me. "Chamomile," she said. "Your favorite." I looked at the cup. The tea was pale yellow, fragrant. Wild's cup sat closer to her, identical, but she didn't touch it. She was waiting for me to drink. "Wild," I said carefully, "I need to understand. Why are you doing this?" She tilted her head, expression puzzled. "Doing what?" "The car crash, the drugs in my apartment, the brunch at Mom and Dad's." She leaned back, crossing her arms. "You think I caused the car crash, Remy? You're being paranoid. The IA investigation is stressing you out. I know you run Ashford Wellness Holdings," I said. "I know it's a drug ring. I know you hired someone to run me off the road. I know you paid a hacker to frame me." For a moment, her face stayed perfectly still. Then the smile dropped. Her eyes turned cold. "You can't prove any of that." "Maybe not yet, but I will." She leaned forward, elbows on the table. "Drink your tea, Remy. It's getting cold." I picked up the cup with both hands, right hand holding it steady, left hand hovering near my pocket. I raised it to my lips. Wild's eyes locked onto my throat, watching, waiting. I tilted the cup. Liquid touched my lips. I let about 5 milliliters enter my mouth. It tasted bitter wrong. I didn't swallow. I held it in my mouth. I lowered the cup, and as I did, my left hand slipped into my pocket, twisted the vial cap open. I turned my head slightly, pretending to cough, and spat the liquid into a napkin. Then I tilted the cup again, pouring 80% of the tea into the vial. I closed the cap with one hand and dropped it back into my pocket. Wild frowned. "You didn't drink it." "I sipped it," I said. "It tastes unusual. What kind of chamomile is this?" "A special blend." Her voice was flat now. "Drink more." "I'm fine." She stood abruptly and walked to the kitchen counter, her back to me. My heart rate climbed to 118. The watch vibrated. Not critical yet, but rising. She returned with a teapot and set it on the table. "Let me pour you more." "Wild, stop. I know what's in that tea." She froze. For 12 seconds I counted, she said nothing. The silence stretched thick and suffocating. The body camera recorded every second. Then she sat down, slowly staring at me. "You're smarter than I thought." "Why?" I asked. "Why do you want to kill me?" She laughed a short, bitter sound. "Because you were going to ruin everything. $12 million, Remy. $12 million a year. Do you know what that feels like, to finally succeed, to have everything I ever wanted, and then you always the perfect one, the FBI agent, the good daughter you decided to play hero?" She picked up my teacup, cradling it in both hands. "The car crash should have scared you off. The drugs should have destroyed your credibility, but you didn't stop. So I told Mom to invite you to brunch. She never questions me. Never. I gave her the oyster sauce, told her it was a premium new brand. She was so eager to please me, she'd do anything." Wild's voice was calm, clinical. "But you survived that, too. So now?" She held up the cup. "This is 25 milligrams of pure shellfish protein extract, 5 times the dose at brunch, enough to close your throat in 3 minutes. By the time anyone finds you, it'll look like an allergic reaction. Tragic accident, grieving sister, no evidence." She stood and walked toward me, still holding the cup. "So here's what's going to happen. You're going to drink this, or I'm going to make you." I reached for my jacket pocket, the backup EpiPen, but Wild lunged. She knocked it from my hand. It skidded across the floor and disappeared under the sofa. My heart rate spiked 152 beats per minute. The watch triggered the automatic breach protocol. Wild grabbed my shoulders, trying to force the cup to my lips. I twisted, fought back. The body camera captured everything, her hands on me, the teacup tilting, the liquid sloshing. I tapped my smart ring twice. Manual signal. 45 seconds later, the door exploded inward. FBI, hands up. Declan and 3 agents stormed in, guns drawn. Wild dropped the teacup. It shattered on the floor, tea spreading in a pale yellow pool. Declan was at my side immediately. "You okay?" I nodded, gasping. "I'm okay. Didn't swallow, but she confessed. It's all on video." 2 agents grabbed Wild, cuffing her wrists behind her back. She screamed, "You can't prove anything. That was my tea. I made it for myself." Declan knelt beside the shattered cup. "Then you won't mind if we test it." Raphael appeared, medical kit in hand. He checked my pulse, my oxygen saturation. "Heart rate's dropping, 135, SPO 297%. You're stable. But we need to get you to a hospital monitor for delayed reactions." "Not yet," I said. "I want to see her arrested." Declan pulled Wild to her feet and read her Miranda rights. She didn't speak. She just stared at me, eyes burning with hate. As the agents led her toward the door, she hissed over her shoulder, "You think this is over? Mom and Dad will never forgive you. You just destroyed this family." I met her gaze. "No, Wild, you destroyed it." I watched her disappear into the elevator. Then I sank into a chair, hands shaking, adrenaline draining out of me like a punctured tire. I'd won, but the fight wasn't over. They took me to Del Seaton Medical Center for monitoring. 4 hours later, Dr. Hayes cleared me for discharge. No anaphylaxis, the prophylaxis had worked. By midnight, I was back at the FBI field office watching the body camera footage with Declan. At 8:30 that evening, I'd been in the emergency room sitting on a paper-covered exam table while a nurse drew blood. The test came back negative for shellfish protein. I hadn't swallowed a significant amount. Doctor. Hayes reviewed my charts and explained that the prophylaxis, the diphenhydramine dexamethasone, and montelukast had delayed the allergic response long enough for my body to process the minimal exposure. She estimated I'd ingested less than 5 milliliters, a sublethal dose, even without the prophylactic drugs. The fake drinking technique, practiced 47 times, had saved my life. At 9 o'clock, Wild was processed at FBI headquarters. Fingerprints, mugshot, a holding cell with concrete walls and a steel bench. She invoked her right to silence and requested an attorney. Geneva Locke arrived at 10, a defense lawyer with a reputation for getting wealthy clients acquitted. She was 45, blonde, expensive suit. She spoke to Wilde for 20 minutes, then told the agents her client would not be answering questions. At 10:30, Declan's team began analyzing the evidence in a secure lab on the 3rd floor. I sat beside him, still wearing the clothes from the sting operation, the brooch camera now lying in an evidence bag on the table. The body camera footage was 13 minutes long. The video was sharp, the audio crystal clear. I watched myself sit across from Wilde. I heard her confession in her own voice. $12 million. I gave her the oyster sauce, told her it was a premium new brand. 25 milligrams of pure shellfish protein extract. I'm gonna make you drink this. The forensics team had collected the spilled tea from Wilde's apartment floor and tested it immediately using a field rapid test. Agent Rivera, the same woman who'd examined my apartment during the internal affairs investigation, walked me through the results. Positive for shellfish protein, 25 milligrams per 250 milliliters. She explained that the chemistry confirmed it was concentrated oyster extract, the same compound found in the Sunday brunch quiche, but at 2.5 times the concentration. The brunch dose had been 10 milligrams, enough to trigger severe anaphylaxis. This dose would have killed me in under 3 minutes. The vial from my jacket pocket tested the same. Same concentration, same substance. Proof that Wilde had served me poison tea. The smart ring audio backed up every word on the body camera. Redundant evidence. If the defense claimed the video had been edited, the audio would corroborate it. At midnight, Declan played the footage for me on a large screen in the conference room. I watched myself raise the cup to my lips. I watched Wilde lean forward, eyes locked on my throat. I heard her say, "You're gonna drink this, or I'm gonna make you." Tears rolled down my face, not from fear, from grief. "That was my sister," I said quietly. "She taught me to ride a bike, and she tried to kill me." Declan shut off the screen. "This is enough for attempted murder, but we can go bigger. We can link her to the car crash, the frame job, the drug ring. We can put her away for 30 years. I wiped my eyes. Then do it. At 2 a.m, Agent Trevor Sutton, the head of the FBI's Digital Forensics Unit, walked into the room carrying a laptop. He was 38, lean with wire-rimmed glasses and the intensity of someone who'd just spent 6 hours staring at code. "We got a search warrant an hour ago," he said. "Federal judge signed it at 1:45. Exigent circumstances, attempted murder of a federal agent. We've started tracing Wilde's digital footprint." He opened the laptop and turned it toward me. On the screen was a map of Austin with red pins marking locations. Kyle Brenner, the guy who ran you off the road, was arrested at 11 p.m. We traced the rental truck's GPS. He was hiding at a motel in Round Rock. His phone had signal messages with a user named W_Wellness Wilde's username, screenshots of your address, photos of your apartment layout, payment confirmations, $25,000 for the car crash, $8,000 for planting the drugs. "And the hacker?" Declan asked. "Enzo Novak. We raided his apartment at 1 a.m. 2401 East Riverside Drive, seized 3 laptops, a Bitcoin hardware wallet, and a burner phone with Signal installed. We're pulling data now. Should have a full forensic report by tomorrow." Trevor adjusted his glasses. "We're also running blockchain analysis on the Bitcoin payments. The $18,000 transfer to Enzo traces back to a Bitcoin ATM at Barton Creek Mall. We're pulling surveillance footage from that location now. Cell tower data places Wilde's phone near the mall at the exact time of the transaction. Both Brenner and Novak have arraignments tomorrow morning. My guess they'll flip by the end of the week. Guys like this don't want to go down for conspiracy to commit murder when they can cut a deal." I stared at the screen. Kyle's mugshot. Enzo's mugshot. Both of them staring back at me blank-faced. By 6 a.m, I'd been awake for 22 hours straight. I sat in the FBI break room, drinking my 4th cup of coffee. Declan sat beside me, quiet. "You should go home," he said. "Sleep." "I can't, not until I know she can't get out." "She won't." He pulled out his phone and showed me an email. Federal judge denied bail an hour ago. Flight risk, she's got $2 million in liquid assets. Danger to the witness, you. She'll be held in federal detention until trial. I let out a slow breath. Good. At 8 o'clock, Declan drove me back to my apartment. My car was still impounded as evidence it had been parked at Wild's building during the sting. I walked inside, peeled off my clothes, stood under the shower until the water ran cold. Then I collapsed onto my bed, still wrapped in a towel, and slept for 14 hours straight. I woke at 10 p.m. Tuesday night. My phone was on the nightstand screen, glowing with notifications. 37 missed calls, 12 from my mother, 8 from my father. 17 from unknown numbers reporters, I realized. The news had leaked. FBI agent's sister, arrested for attempted murder. There was one voicemail from my mother. I played it on speaker. Remy, Estelle's voice said, shaking with anger. How could you do this to Wild? She's your sister. We didn't raise you like this. Your father and I are ashamed. Don't expect to see us at Thanksgiving. I stared at the phone for a long moment. Then I deleted the voicemail without listening to the rest. I'd saved my life, but I'd lost my family. Or maybe I'd never really had them. I set the phone down and stared at the ceiling. Declan had mentioned something before I left the office, bank records showing $216,000 in suspicious transfers from Wild to my parents over the past 18 months. The investigation was expanding. If the evidence held, my parents could be arrested as co-conspirators within the week. Trial preparation would begin next week. I would have to testify against Wild, and possibly against my parents. I closed my eyes. The fight wasn't over. It was just beginning. The next 3 weeks passed in a blur. Depositions, forensic reports, interviews. I stood on the outside watching Declan's team dismantle Wild's empire piece by piece. And with each new discovery, I realized how deep the betrayal had gone. On October 22nd, the FBI's Digital Forensics Unit completed its analysis of Enzo Novak's seized devices. Agent Trevor Sutton walked me through the findings in a secure briefing room. Enzo's burner laptop had browser history showing access to Grand Cayman Trust Bank at 11:22 a.m. on October 16th, just minutes after his meeting with Wild at the coffee shop. A file labeled Remy_docs.zip contained scanned copies of my social security card, my passport, and forged signatures. The metadata showed it had been created on October 15th. When questioned, Enzo confirmed Wild had sent the documents via Signal. The Signal chat logs backed up to an encrypted cloud server that the FBI cracked under court order were damning. Messages from a user named W Wellness read need offshore account 220,000 under target's name. Use these docs. Another send anonymous tip to FBI IA after account is opened. Enzo's Bitcoin wallet showed an incoming payment of $18,000 from wallet address 1A2B3C4D5E6F7G8H9 I0J on October 15th at 3:50 p.m. On October 23rd, the FBI's blockchain analysis unit traced that wallet. It had made 3 outgoing transactions, $25,000 to Kyle Brenner's wallet on October 11th before the car crash, $8,000 to Kyle's wallet on October 17th after he'd planted the drugs, $18,000 to Enzo's wallet on October 15th. The source of the payments, a Bitcoin ATM at Barton Creek Mall in Austin. Transaction time-stamped October 15th at 3:42 p.m. Security footage from the ATM showed a woman approximately 5'6", wearing a black hoodie and Gucci sunglasses model GG0061S. On October 24th, the FBI subpoenaed Meta for records from Wild's Instagram account. They recovered a deleted story posted on October 15th at 4:12 p.m., a selfie taken at Barton Creek Mall. Wild wore a black hoodie and Gucci sunglasses. The location tag embedded in the photo showed coordinates 30.2676 degrees north, 97.863 degrees west. The exact location of the Bitcoin ATM, accurate within 15 meters. The caption read, "Shopping Therapy." The device ID matched Wild's iPhone 13 Pro IMEI 3567890123456778, registered to her AT&T account. On October 25th, IFB. agents arrested Kyle Brenner at a motel in Round Rock. Facing 35 to 45 years in federal prison, Kyle accepted a plea deal 15 years in exchange for testimony. In a recorded deposition on October 27th, he stated, "Wild Ashford hired me through Signal under the username W_wellness. She paid me $25,000 in Bitcoin for the car crash and $8,000 for planting the drugs. I met her once in person Midnight Cowboy Bar on East 6th Street, October 16th at 11:30 p.m. She handed me $8,000 cash in an envelope and told me to wipe everything. I can identify her in a photo lineup." The FBI showed Kyle a lineup of 6 women with similar height and build. He identified Wild immediately. On October 28th, Enzo Novak was formally arrested and charged. He accepted a plea deal, 5 years plus $50,000 restitution. In his recorded testimony on November 2nd, he said, "I met Wild at Higher Grounds Coffee downtown on October 16th at 11:15 a.m. She typed on my laptop. I didn't stop her. The FBI later found her fingerprints on the keyboard keys, E, R, and Y. She paid me $18,000 in Bitcoin to hack Remy Ashford's laptop, create fake emails, and open an offshore account in her name." The FBI forensics team had recovered 3 partial fingerprints from Enzo's laptop keyboard on the E, R, and Y keys. The prints matched Wild Ashford. They were on file from a Texas pharmaceutical business license application she'd submitted in 2020. On November 3rd, the FBI completed its cell tower analysis. A subpoena to AT&T provided location records for Wild's phone 512-5550147. On October 12th, between 2:30 and 3:15 p.m., her phone had pinged towers in the South Congress area, less than a kilometer from my apartment she'd been surveilling while Kyle broke in. On October 15th, between 3:38 and 3:50 p.m., her phone was at Barton Creek Mall, the exact time frame of the Bitcoin ATM transaction. On October 16th, between 11:15 a.m. and 12:02 p.m., her phone was in downtown Austin for 47 minutes, matching Enzo's testimony about their cafe meeting. On November 5th, FBI agents raided my parents' home in Westlake Hills. I wasn't there. Declan called me at 6 p.m. and told me to come to the field office. When I arrived, he laid out the evidence on a conference table. Sterling's laptop contained emails with Wild detailing referrals coded language for drug customers. Payment confirmations showed $127,000 in wire transfers from Wild's businesses over 18 months. Estelle's diary was worse. It contained a handwritten client list, 38 names, addresses, drug preferences, Xanax, Ambien, Phentermine. An entry dated October 18th read, "Wild says Remy is causing trouble. Need to help her deal with it. Sunday brunch plan." A text message from Estelle's phone to Wild sent October 18th at 9:15 p.m. read, "Mom will make sure Rebecca comes Sunday. You do what you need to." Both of my parents were arrested that afternoon, charged with conspiracy to distribute controlled substances, conspiracy to commit murder as accessories, and obstruction of justice. Bail was set at $250,000 each. Sterling posted his using home equity. Estelle posted hers using her retirement fund. They were released pending trial. I didn't cry when Declan told me. I just stared at the diary entry. Sunday brunch plan. My mother had known. She'd invited me to that brunch knowing Wild intended to kill me. On November 10th, my internal affairs investigation was officially closed. The FBI director issued a public statement. Special Agent Ashford was the victim of a sophisticated frame-up. Her record is spotless. She is reinstated immediately with full back pay. I went back to work on November 11th. My colleagues didn't know what to say to me. I didn't know what to say to them. On November 15th, a federal grand jury handed down a 14-count indictment against Wild Ashford. Attempted murder, 2 counts. Solicitation to commit murder. Conspiracy to commit murder. Drug trafficking. Conspiracy to distribute. Wire fraud. Identity theft. Obstruction of justice, 2 counts. Money laundering. Assault. Witness tampering. The final 2 counts related to organized crime sentencing enhancements. If convicted on all counts, she faced life in federal prison. That evening, I received a call from Holden Crane, the federal prosecutor assigned to the case. He was 52, stern-voiced, with 30 years of trial experience. Agent Ashford? He said, "We have the strongest case I've seen in 20 years. Body camera footage, a recorded confession, digital forensics linking your sister to every crime, eyewitness testimony from 2 co-conspirators. But I need you on the stand. I need the jury to hear from you directly. Are you ready?" I stood at my apartment window looking out over the Austin skyline. The city lights stretched to the horizon, bright and indifferent. "I've spent 12 years putting criminals in prison," I said quietly. "Now I'm about to do it to my own sister. Am I ready?" I closed my eyes. I have to be. December 9th. I walked into the federal courthouse at 8 in the morning, passed through the metal detector, took the elevator to the 5th floor. Courtroom 503. I'd testified in dozens of trials, but this time the defendant was family. The courtroom was wood-paneled and austere with high ceilings and rows of benches. Judge Octavia Strand presided, 61 years old, a federal judge with 15 years on the bench and a reputation for fairness and severity. Jury selection had been completed the day before 12 jurors plus 4 alternates, 8 women and 4 men ages, ranging from 28 to 67. Wilde sat at the defense table beside Geneva Locke wearing a navy suit and pearls. Her expression was blank. She didn't look at me. At 9:30, Holden Crane stood and delivered the prosecution's opening statement. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, his voice measured and authoritative, "this case is about greed, betrayal, and attempted murder. The defendant, Wilde Ashford, ran a $12 million drug empire. When her sister, FBI Special Agent Remy Ashford, discovered the truth, Wilde didn't confess. She didn't turn herself in. She tried to kill her sister. 3 times. You will hear evidence, body camera footage, witness testimony, digital forensics proving beyond a reasonable doubt that Wilde Ashford is guilty." Geneva Locke rose for the defense. "The prosecution will paint Wilde as a monster." She said, her tone sharp and confident. "But what you'll really see is a successful businesswoman targeted by an overzealous FBI agent who happens to be her sister. Remy Ashford, desperate to salvage her career after an internal affairs investigation fabricated evidence. The confession, you'll hear, was coerced, taken out of context. Wilde Ashford is innocent." I sat in the gallery, hands folded in my lap, and felt anger rise in my chest. But I kept my face composed. She was doing her job, but she was lying. On day 2, the prosecution called Kyle Brenner. He testified via video link from a federal prison wearing an orange jumpsuit, looking older and thinner than I remembered. "Mr. Brenner," Holden said, "did you cause the car crash involving Remy Ashford on October 12, 2025? "Yes," Kyle said. "Wilde Ashford hired me, paid me $25,000 in Bitcoin." "How did she contact you?" "Signal app. Username W Wellness. She sent me photos of Remy's car, her address, her daily route. Told me to make it look like a drunk driving accident." "Did you ever meet Wilde in person?" "Once. Midnight Cowboy Bar on East 6th Street, October 16th. She gave me $8,000 cash to plant drugs in Remy's apartment." Geneva cross-examined him aggressively. "Mr. Brenner, you're a convicted felon serving 15 years for attempted murder. You accepted a plea deal, testify against Wilde in exchange for a reduced sentence. Correct?" "Correct. So you have every reason to lie to say what the prosecutors want to save yourself." "I'm telling the truth." "You never saw Wilde's face clearly at the bar, did you?" "It was dark, crowded." "I saw her. I identified her in a photo lineup. It was her." On day 3, the prosecution called Enzo Novak, also via video. His testimony was similar. Wilde had hired him, paid him $18,000, met him at a coffee shop, typed on his laptop. Geneva cross-examined him the same way, attacking his credibility, suggesting misidentification. That afternoon, Agent Trevor Sutton took the stand. He walked the jury through the digital forensics, the Bitcoin blockchain analysis, the ATM security footage showing a woman in a black hoodie matching Wilde's height. the deleted Instagram story with a location tag matching the ATM within 15 meters. Geneva cross-examined him coolly. Agent Sutton, you can't definitively see the woman's face in the ATM footage, correct? Correct, but the Instagram post. So it could be anyone of similar height wearing a hoodie. The Instagram post, the location tag, and the timestamp all corroborate, just circumstantial. On day 4, the prosecution called me. I walked to the witness stand, raised my right hand, swore to tell the truth. I sat down and looked directly at Wilde. She stared back, her face unreadable. Holden Crane began his direct examination. For 45 minutes, I described everything, discovering the drug ring confronting Wilde, the car crash, the hospital, the frame job, the brunch poisoning, the final poisoning attempt. Agent Ashford. Holden said, "Why did you agree to go to Wilde's apartment on October 20th, knowing she might try to poison you? Because it was the only way to get evidence," I said. "I wore a body camera. I had FBI backup 45 seconds away. I used medical prophylaxis. I controlled the risk. Were you afraid?" I paused. "Yes, but I was more afraid of her getting away with it." Holden turned to the judge. "Your Honor, I'd like to play the body camera footage." The lights dimmed. A screen descended. For 13 minutes, the courtroom was silent. The jury watched Wilde confess. They heard her say, $12 million. I gave her the oyster sauce, told her it was a premium new brand. 25 milligrams of pure shellfish protein. "I'm going to make you drink this." They watched her try to force the cup to my lips. They watched the FBI breach the door. 2 jurors cried. An older man in the back row shook his head in disgust. When the lights came back on, Geneva Locke stood for cross-examination. "Agent Ashford," she said, her voice hard, "you were under an internal affairs investigation for corruption at the time of this so-called confession, correct?" "Yes, but I was later exonerated. But at that time you were desperate. Your career was threatened. You admit you staged this meeting, wore a hidden camera, directed the entire script. I recorded evidence of attempted murder. Or did you entrap your sister, provoke her, record it, and then present it as evidence? Isn't it possible Wilde was speaking hypothetically, not confessing? She tried to force poison down my throat. That's not hypothetical. Or you staged that for the camera." I looked at Geneva, then at the jury. "I didn't stage anything. She tried to kill me." Geneva stared at me for a long moment, then sat down. No further questions. That afternoon, the prosecution rested. As I walked past the defense table, Wilde leaned forward and whispered just loud enough for me to hear, "Mom and Dad will never forgive you." I stopped, turned, looked directly at her. "They'll be joining you soon enough," I said quietly. Judge Strand glanced up but said nothing. I walked out of the courtroom and sat on a bench in the hallway, hands shaking. I'd told the truth. Now it was up to the jury. The defense rested on Friday, December 13th, 2025. Judge Octavia Strand delivered jury instructions Monday morning, December 16th at 9 a.m., her voice steady and precise as she explained the legal standards for each of the 14 counts. By 2:00 p.m., the jury filed into the deliberation room on the 6th floor and the waiting began. I sat in the courthouse hallway outside courtroom 503, a styrofoam cup of burnt coffee growing cold in my hands. Declan sat beside me in silence, occasionally checking his phone for updates that never came. The hours crawled. Monday evening turned into Tuesday morning. Tuesday afternoon bled into Wednesday. 41 hours. The length of deliberation did not signal a hung jury. It meant the jurors were thorough, weighing every piece of evidence, every witness statement, every frame of that 13-minute body cam video. Defense summary. What the jury considered. Wilde had not testified. Geneva Locke advised against it. The risk was too great. One slip under cross-examination, one contradiction caught on tape, and the case would collapse entirely. Instead, the defense called 3 witnesses in a last-ditch effort to create reasonable doubt. First came a character witness, a college friend of Wilde's, who painted her as kind, generous, always the first to help. Under Holden Crane's cross-examination, the friend admitted she had not seen Wilde in over 2 years and knew nothing about her business activities. Next, a technology expert argued that body cam footage could be edited or manipulated. The FBI's digital forensics specialist, Agent Trevor Sutton, returned to the stand and demolished the claim with metadata analysis, showing no alterations, no cuts, no timestamp gaps. The video was authentic. Finally, a pharmacist testified that oyster sauce was a common culinary ingredient and contamination could have been accidental. Holden Crane asked a single question on cross, "Doctor, can you explain why the defendant confessed on video to serving 25 milligrams of pure shellfish extract with intent to kill?" The pharmacist stammered and had no answer. Geneva Locke's closing argument was passionate but hollow. She urged the jury to consider the rush to judgment, the overreach of federal power, the lack of direct evidence linking Wilde to the crimes. But the evidence was not circumstantial. It was overwhelming. The body cam video alone was enough to convict. The verdict, December 18th, 2025, 7:00 p.m. At 7:00 p.m. Wednesday evening, the bailiff knocked on the witness room door. "Jury has a verdict." My heart hammered against my ribs. Declan stood, offered his hand, and I took it. We walked back into courtroom 503. The room was packed. Reporters filled the back rows, FBI colleagues sat in the middle, and my parents Sterling and Estelle occupied seats directly behind the defense table. They had attended every day of trial, glaring at me from across the aisle, their silent loyalty to Wilde, a knife in my chest. Judge Strand entered at 8:30 p.m. Evening sessions were rare, but she wanted closure. She asked, "Has the jury reached a verdict?" The foreperson, a 52-year-old accountant with graying hair and steady eyes, stood. "Yes, Your Honor." The clerk handed her a stack of verdict forms. She began to read. Count 1, attempted murder. By vehicular assault, we find the defendant guilty. My breath caught. Count 2, attempted murder. By poisoning, we find the defendant guilty. Wilde's face drained of color. Count 3, solicitation of murder, guilty. Count 4, conspiracy to commit murder, guilty. Count 5, drug trafficking under 21 U.S.C. section 841, guilty. Count 6, conspiracy to distribute controlled substances under 21 U.S.C. section 846, guilty. Count 7, wire fraud, guilty. Count 8, identity theft, guilty. Count 9, obstruction of justice by planting evidence, guilty. Count 10, obstruction of justice by creating false emails, guilty. Count 11, money laundering, guilty. Count 12, assault with intent to kill, guilty. Count 13, witness tampering, guilty. Count 14, violation of the Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act, guilty. 14 counts, 14 guilty verdicts. Wilde collapsed forward, her forehead hitting the defense table. Geneva Locke placed a hand on her shoulder. For the first time in the entire trial, Wilde began to cry deep, shaking sobs that echoed in the silent courtroom. I felt tears stream down my own face, but I did not wipe them away. Relief, grief, vindication, loss. All of it at once, a tangled knot I could not unravel. Declan squeezed my hand so hard it hurt. Behind me, Estelle wailed. Sterling shouted, "This is a farce! You're destroying an innocent woman!" Judge Strand's gavel cracked like a gunshot. "Mr. Ashford, one more outburst and you will be held in contempt." Sterling sat down, fists clenched, jaw tight. Judge Strand thanked the jury and scheduled sentencing for Friday, December 20th at 10 a.m. Sentencing hearing, December 20th, 2025, 10 a.m. 2 days later, the courtroom filled again. This time, there was no suspense, only the weight of consequence. Holden Crane stood and presented the government's sentencing memorandum. He cited the federal sentencing guidelines, the scale of Wilde's $12 million drug empire, the calculated violence she orchestrated, and the betrayal of her own sister, a federal agent. He recommended the maximum sentence, life imprisonment. Geneva Locke countered with a plea for leniency. Wilde was a first-time offender, she argued, with no prior criminal record. She was young, capable of rehabilitation, and deserved a second chance. She requested the statutory minimum of 10 years. Judge Strand turned to me. "Agent Ashford, would you like to make a victim impact statement?" I stood. My hands shook as I unfolded the paper I had prepared. My voice was steady, but barely. "Your Honor, Wilde Ashford is my sister. I loved her. I grew up idolizing her. When I discovered her crimes, I gave her a chance to turn herself in. She responded by trying to kill me 3 times. She hired a hitman to ram my car. I nearly died. She framed me for crimes I did not commit. I lost my career temporarily. She poisoned me twice. The second time she tried to force the toxin down my throat while I begged her to stop. This was not a moment of weakness. This was calculated, cold-blooded, sustained attempted murder. She deserves the maximum sentence. I sat down. My father glared at me. My mother looked away. Judge Strand turned to Wilde. "Miss Ashford, do you wish to speak?" Wilde stood her orange jumpsuit, wrinkled her face puffy from crying. Her voice was hoarse. "I'm sorry. I'm sorry to Remy, to my family, to everyone I hurt. I was terrified of losing everything. I made terrible, terrible choices. I don't expect forgiveness, but I am sorry." I did not believe her. It was too late. Judge Strand folded her hands. "Miss Ashford, you operated a sophisticated criminal organization that harmed hundreds of people. When your sister, a federal agent, discovered your crimes, you showed no remorse. You attempted to murder her. You have demonstrated no empathy, no compassion, no humanity. You are a danger to society." She read the sentence aloud. Count 1, 10 years. Count 2, 15 years, enhanced for use of a lethal poison. Count 5, 20 years base level for a $12 million drug network. Counts 3, 4, and 6 through 14. Concurrent. Total 30 years in federal prison with no eligibility for parole for the first 25 years. Additionally, the court orders forfeiture of $12 million in assets, a criminal fine of $500,000, lifetime supervised release, and restitution of $2,800,000 to victims. Wilde's knees buckled. The marshals steadied her. She turned to look at me one last time, her lips moving silently. I read them. "I hate you." I mouthed back, "I know." Aftermath. Outside the courthouse, Holden Crane approached me. "Your parents' trial is January 20th, 2026. We'll need you to testify again." I nodded. "I'll be there." Reporters swarmed. "Agent Ashford." "How do you feel?" I ignored them and climbed into Declan's car. He drove me home in silence. Halfway there, he asked, "Do you think you did the right thing?" I stared out the window at the Austin skyline, the winter sun pale and distant. "I saved my life. I stopped a criminal. That's always right." I paused. "But winning doesn't feel like I thought it would. It feels like losing everything." Declan said nothing. There was nothing left to say. The week after the trial, I slept for 3 days straight. When I finally woke, the world looked different, quieter, emptier, but also clearer. December 21st, 2025, Saturday. I opened my eyes in my South Congress apartment for the first time in weeks without the weight of court obligations. My phone showed 142 messages, reporters, FBI, colleagues, strangers calling me a hero. I deleted them all without reading. One message stood out from Declan. "Late breakfast, Lady Bird Lake Cafe, 10 a.m. At the Lakeside Cafe, the December sun was warm, 65 degrees. Declan sat at an outdoor table with 2 coffees waiting. We sat in silence for 5 minutes. "How are you?" he asked. I watched kayakers glide across the water. "I don't know. I sent my sister to prison. My parents hate me, but I'm alive. Is that enough?" "More than enough," Declan said. "You chose truth over family." He leaned forward. "FBI Director Morrison called yesterday. They want to promote you. Director of Forensic Toxicology at Quantico. GS-15, 145,000, overseeing 47 toxicologists nationwide." I sat back, stunned. "I need time to think." "Take a week," he said, "but you deserve this." December 22nd, 2025, Sunday. I flew to Washington and met FBI Director Catherine Morrison at the Hoover Building. She was 58, sharp-eyed, the first female FBI director. "Agent Ashford, your courage has been exemplary," she said. "We're offering you Director of Forensic Toxicology at Quantico. You'll lead a national team shape policy train the next generation. You've earned this." "I appreciate the offer," and I said, "but I need time." She nodded. "Take a week, but don't let trauma define you." I flew back to Austin, her words echoing. December 23rd, 2025, Monday. I walked the Ladybird Lake Trail for the first time since the car crash. 7 miles, my ribs finally healed. Leaving Austin meant leaving memories both good and bad. A fresh start. But it also meant leaving Declan. By the time I reached my car, I still had no answer. December 24th, 2025, Christmas Eve. A package arrived, no return address. Inside was a card from my parents. Remy. We will not be participating in any future holidays with you. You destroyed this family. Wild is our daughter, and we will support her appeal. Do not contact us again. Mom and Dad. I read it twice. Then I cried, not from grief, but from release. I didn't destroy this family, I whispered. I exposed it. December 25th, 2025, Christmas Day. I spent Christmas alone for the first time. I cooked spaghetti carbonara and watched an old film. At 8 p.m., my doorbell rang. Declan stood holding a bottle of wine and homemade pumpkin pie. I figured you might be alone. My daughter's with her grandparents in Dallas. I smiled the first genuine smile in weeks. Come in. We ate pie, drank wine, talked for 4 hours. We didn't talk about the trial. We talked about books, places we wanted to visit, childhood dreams we'd forgotten. At midnight, Declan stood to leave. If I take the promotion, if I move to Quantico, will I still see you? I asked. He turned back. Do you want it? Yes. Then we'll figure it out. Austin to Quantico is 3 hours. I can do long distance if you can. I stepped forward and kissed him, brief, tentative, but real. He kissed me back. When he left, I stood in the doorway, smiling. Maybe I didn't lose everything. December 27th, 2025, Friday. I called Director Morrison. I accept. When do I start? January 6, 2026. Welcome to Leadership Agent Ashford. December 28th, 2025, Saturday. I began packing. The moving crew would arrive January 3rd. I found an old photo album, pictures of Wild and me as children. One photo showed us at 8 and 3 building a sandcastle on Galveston Beach. Wild's face was bright with laughter. I stared at it for 10 minutes. Then I closed the album and placed it in a box marked Donate. That girl is gone. Maybe she never existed. December 29th, 2025, Sunday. A reporter from the Austin American-Statesman emailed asking for an interview about Wild's drug network. I replied, my testimony is in the public record. That's all I have to say. December 30th, 2025, Monday. I drove to FCI Bastrop, 30 miles east of Austin, where Wild was held before transfer. I requested visitation. She consented out of curiosity. At 3 p.m., I sat separated from her by glass, speaking through phones. Wild looked different. No makeup, hair in a ponytail, dark circles under her eyes. Why are you here? Maybe to get closure. I'm appealing. Geneva says we have grounds entrapment, prosecutorial misconduct. You won't win. Her jaw tightened. You destroyed me to be a hero. No, to stop you from killing me. I wasn't going to... She stopped, realizing she was about to incriminate herself. Silence stretched. Do Mom and Dad visit you? No. They sent a letter telling me not to contact them. Wild smiled bitterly. They visit me every week. Bring magazine snacks. They're remortgaging the house for my appeal, so I guess I win. I stood. You're serving 30 years, Wild. That's not winning. At least I still have a family. I paused at the door. No, you have enablers. I have freedom. I hung up and walked out without looking back. December 30th, 2025 to 6 p.m. Back at my apartment, I opened a blank notebook and wrote, Today I visited Wild in prison. I thought I'd feel sadness, anger, guilt. But all I felt was relief. Relief that it's over. Relief that I'm alive. Relief that I chose truth. Tomorrow I start packing for Quantico. A new job, a new city, maybe a new relationship. I don't know what happens next, but for the first time, I'm not afraid. I stood on my third-floor balcony looking down at South Congress. The December night was cool, 58 degrees, Austin lights glittering like scattered stars. I thought about the past 10 weeks, the car crash, the poison, the trial. 12 years analyzing death, never imagining I'd come so close. I thought about Wild in her cell, my parents choosing loyalty over justice. Then I stopped thinking. I inhaled deeply, cold air, filling my lungs, ribs, no longer aching. Tomorrow I would leave Austin. Tomorrow I would begin again. And to you, listening to this story, remember this: I thought I could save my family by exposing the truth. I was wrong. Sometimes the people closest to you are the ones most capable of destroying you. Family betrayal doesn't announce itself. It hides behind Sunday dinners and polite smiles until you're standing alone wondering when love turned to poison. If there's a lesson here, it's this: trust God first, not blood. I prayed for wisdom before I confronted Wild, and God gave me clarity, but I ignored the warning signs because I wanted to believe my family was worth saving. Don't make my mistake. When God shows you someone's true character, believe him the first time. Family revenge might feel justified, but it hollows you out. I didn't seek revenge. I sought justice. There's a difference. God gave me the strength to choose truth over comfort, evidence over denial. Without him, I would have stayed silent and died. Here's what I know now: family betrayal and family revenge are two sides of the same poison. One destroys you from the outside, the other destroys you from within. I chose a third path: survival through truth. It cost me everything familiar, but it gave me freedom. God walked with me through that fire. He'll walk with you through yours. My advice: don't wait until you're drinking poison to set boundaries. Don't sacrifice yourself on the altar of family loyalty. And don't ever ignore what God is trying to tell you. If this story moved you, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever faced family betrayal? How did you survive? Please share this video with someone who needs to hear it. And subscribe to this channel for more true crime stories that remind us why truth always matters. Thank you for staying with me until the end. And a word of caution: the stories ahead contain some fictionalized elements created for educational purposes. If you'd prefer not to continue, feel free to exit now and choose content that better suits you.